The scent of moonflower and pine hung heavy in the winter air. Diana Silverwood stood by the frost-covered window of her cabin, watching snowflakes dance in the glow of lanterns strung between ancient oaks. Her fingers methodically ground dried herbs with a mortar and pestle, the familiar motion soothing her racing thoughts. The invitation to the winter selection gathering sat unopened on her wooden table, its formal wax seal bearing the imprint of the Silverwood Pack's alpha symbol. Beyond the cabin walls, bells chimed across the settlement, calling the pack members to gather. Diana paused her work, listening to their distant melody. At 35, she had avoided these selection ceremonies for years. They weren't meant for women her age. They were for the young, vibrant females of the pack, those still in their prime breeding years, those still considered worthy of being chosen. Diana placed the mortar on her workbench and moved toward the back wall of her cabin, where her military uniform hung alongside a collection of carefully maintained weapons, souvenirs from another life. Her fingers traced the purple heart pinned to the chest, remembering the Afghanistan mission that nearly claimed her life. The mission where her wolf senses had detected the ambush seconds before it happened, allowing her to save her entire unit despite taking 2 bullets to the shoulder. The military had called it extraordinary intuition. Diana knew better. In the silver-framed mirror beside her uniform, Diana studied her reflection. Her face remained youthful despite the years of service, but faint lines had formed at the corners of her eyes. Her blonde hair, once cut to military regulation, now fell past her shoulders in thick waves with subtle strands of silver threading through like moonlight. The pendant at her throat gleamed in the lamplight, a delicate silver crescent moon wrapped around a blue stone. Her mother's final gift. This will remind you of your worth when others forget. A knock at the door broke her reverie. When she opened it, Sarah Thompson stood on her porch, snowflakes catching in her silver hair. At 65, Sarah had been Diana's mentor since childhood, teaching her the ways of herbal medicine and pack tradition. Still hiding away in here with your potions and memories? Sarah's weathered face creased into a knowing smile. The gathering begins soon. Diana sighed, turning back to her workbench. You know those ceremonies aren't for women like me. They're for girls like Catherine Reed, barely 22 and ready to bear children for the pack's strongest males. Sarah entered uninvited, closing the door against the cold. She picked up the unopened invitation. Marcus Blackwood himself requested your presence. Our Alpha King doesn't make such requests lightly. Politics, Diana replied dismissively. He invites all unmated females to maintain appearances of inclusion. The outcome remains the same. Sarah moved to the cedar chest at the foot of Diana's bed and opened it without permission, pulling out a midnight blue dress. The fabric shimmered like water under moonlight. Your grandmother wore this when she defended the pack during the Great Depression. She too was considered too old until she proved her worth. Defending the pack from starvation is different from parading before eligible males like prized cattle, Diana countered, but her fingers reached for the dress nonetheless. The fabric felt cool against her skin, oddly comforting. The pack needs more than just breeding females, Sarah said firmly. It needs wisdom, experience, the things that come only with age. Diana took the dress reluctantly. 1 hour. I'll make an appearance and leave. Sarah smiled triumphantly. 1 hour may be all it takes to change everything. Snow crunched beneath Diana's boots as she approached the central clearing. The midnight blue dress flowed around her legs, covered partially by her practical winter coat. All around, lanterns illuminated the night, turning snowflakes into falling stars. Pack members streamed toward the gathering space, excitement filling the cold air. Diana paused at the edge of the forest, watching young women in bright dresses glide through the snow, their laughter rising into the night like birdsong. A group of hunters passed nearby, boasting loudly about a wolf they'd shot near the border. Diana tensed, recognizing their description of the old gray wolf from the neighboring territory, a gentle soul who had helped her through recovery after her military service. She clenched her fists, swallowing the growl that threatened to rise in her throat. The beast inside her stirred, responding to her anger, but years of military discipline kept it contained. This control, this iron will, had saved her life many times before. The clearing opened before her, transformed by hundreds of lanterns and bonfires that pushed back the winter darkness. Tables laden with food lined one side, while musicians played traditional pack melodies on the other. In the center, young couples had already begun to dance, the ancient ritual of selection beginning with these first tentative pairings. Diana remained at the periphery, mentally cataloging the medicinal plants she could harvest near the river once spring arrived. Her notes became a shield against the pitying glances thrown her way. The unmated older female, the soldier who returned damaged, the woman who had missed her chance. Still hoping someone might overlook your age and scars? Diana didn't need to turn to recognize Victor Reed's voice, smooth as honey but sharp with disdain. Her former fiancé, who had broken their engagement 5 years ago when she returned from her second tour with PTSD and a body bearing new scars. He had found Catherine soon after, young and unmarked by life's hardships. "I'm merely observing the celebration, Victor," she replied evenly, keeping her gaze fixed on the dancers. He moved closer, his breath visible in the cold air. "No one will choose you, Diana. Your time has passed." His words were soft, meant only for her, laced with casual cruelty. "Catherine is pregnant with our first, the future of the pack. You should have accepted Derek's offer last winter. A widower with 3 children wouldn't have been concerned with your limitations." The silver pendant burned against Diana's skin as she swallowed the retort rising in her throat. Her hands trembled slightly, but she kept them carefully folded before her. "I appreciate your concern for my future, Victor, but I believe someone is calling for you." Before Victor could respond, a low growl rumbled through the clearing. The crowd parted like water around stone, and Diana's breath caught. The Pack Council had arrived. 4 imposing beta leaders representing the Cardinal territories flanked a central figure who stood taller than the rest. Marcus Blackwood, the Alpha King, ruler of all wolf shifters in the Silverwood territories. His presence commanded attention, power bending the air around him. Obsidian hair with silver at the temples framed a face that bore the marks of battles won. A scar ran from his right temple to his cheekbone, adding character rather than diminishing his striking appearance. Victor paled noticeably, lowering his head in submission before slinking back into the crowd. Diana realized with a start that Marcus must have heard their exchange, his gaze, sharp as winter stars, fixed on Victor's retreating form before shifting to her. The crowd's nervous murmuring faded as Marcus and his Beta Council moved through the gathering. Tradition dictated that they would circulate, speaking with potential mates, assessing the strength of the pack's future generations. Diana turned away, preparing to retreat to the shadows. A firm voice stopped her. "You're not dancing." Diana found Marcus Blackwood standing before her, his presence somehow more commanding up close. Power radiated from him, not just the inherent strength of an alpha, but something more elemental, a force of nature contained within human form. "No," she finally managed, cursing the slight tremor in her voice. "I'm content to observe." His head tilted slightly, a gesture more wolf than man. "Are you?" The question hung between them, deceptively simple, yet laden with meaning she couldn't decipher. Diana found herself straightening, her hand falling away from the pendant. "It's been many years since I participated in a selection," she said carefully. "My season for such things has passed." Something flickered across his features, surprise perhaps, or curiosity. "Who told you that?" Before Diana could respond, shouting erupted from the far side of the clearing. 2 young males, their features contorted with the beginning stages of shifting, squared off while onlookers scrambled away. The scent of aggression filled the air. Marcus's attention snapped toward the disturbance. "Excuse me," he said, already moving toward the conflict with fluid grace that belied his size. Diana watched him go, her heart hammering against her ribs for reasons she couldn't fully understand. Their brief interaction left her unsettled, like the ground had shifted beneath her feet without warning. Needing space from the crowded gathering, Diana slipped away, following a narrow path that led to a frozen creek beyond the clearing. The sounds of celebration faded behind her as she picked her way carefully through the snowy underbrush, guided by moonlight and memory. The creek spread before her, its surface frozen into a mirror for the stars above. Diana settled on a fallen log at the water's edge, her reflection rippling in the smooth ice. Here, away from watchful eyes and whispered judgments, she allowed her shoulders to drop, her carefully maintained composure to crack. "You shouldn't wander alone on winter nights." Diana startled, nearly losing her balance on the log. Her military instincts kicked in as she whirled toward the voice, hand automatically reaching for a weapon that wasn't there. Marcus Blackwood stood several paces away, his powerful frame silhouetted against the trees. The moonlight illuminated his features, revealing eyes that seemed to see too much. "The celebration is well managed by your betas," she said, recovering her composure. "So it is." He moved closer until moonlight fully illuminated his features. "You didn't answer my question." Diana frowned, trying to recall. "Which question? Who told you your season had passed?" The directness of his inquiry caught her off guard. Alpha wolves were notoriously straightforward, but his interest in her situation perplexed her. "No one needed to tell me," she replied carefully. "It's evident in how the pack views unmated females my age. We become invisible, or worse, objects of pity." He considered this, his expression unreadable. Then, with a grace that defied his size, he sat beside her on the log, leaving a respectful distance between them. "And you accepted this assessment?" A small, bitter laugh escaped her before she could suppress it. "What choice did I have? Fight against the natural order? Beg for consideration from men who clearly preferred younger mates?" "The natural order," he repeated, the words sounding strange in his mouth. "Tell me, Diana, that is your name, correct?" She nodded, surprised he knew it. "Tell me, Diana, who defines this natural order you speak of? Who decided the worth of a mate lies in youth rather than character, experience rather than naivety?" His questions hung in the air between them, challenging assumptions she'd accepted as immutable truths. Before she could formulate a response, a distant crack echoed through the forest. Not the sound of breaking ice or falling branches, but gunfire. Marcus was immediately on his feet, his posture alert. Diana rose as well, her senses expanding outward, a skill honed through combat training and enhanced by her wolf nature. "3 shooters," she said automatically, analyzing the sound patterns. "Northeast, about 2 miles. Military-grade weapons, using silver ammunition from the sound of the discharge." Marcus's eyes widened slightly in surprise, then narrowed with approval. "Hunters," he growled. "In our territory," Diana added, already removing her boots and reaching for the zipper of her dress. Military efficiency overrode social norms. They're tracking something. Or someone. Without further discussion, both began to shed their outer clothing. Diana folded her dress quickly and placed it beneath the log, protected from the snow. She stood in simple underclothes, the cold barely registering as her focus narrowed to the threat. She met Marcus's eyes. No words were needed. Both closed their eyes, surrendering to the change that boiled beneath their skin. The transformation came to Diana like an old friend. Bones reshaped, muscles elongated, skin sprouted silver-blonde fur that gleamed in the moonlight. The pain was familiar, almost welcome after years of practice. When she opened her eyes, the world had transformed into a tapestry of scents and sounds, colors muted, but textures infinitely sharper. Beside her stood a massive black wolf with silver markings on his face, mirroring the human scars of the Alpha King. Marcus's wolf form towered over hers, power evident in every line of his body. He looked at her, recognition in his amber eyes, then turned northeast. Together they bounded into the forest, paws silent on the snow-covered ground, moving as one toward the danger threatening their pack. Their breath formed clouds in the frigid air as they ran, navigating the winter landscape with preternatural speed. Diana's military training merged with her wolf instincts, creating perfect awareness of their surroundings. She matched Marcus stride for stride, her smaller form allowing her to weave through dense underbrush that slowed his larger frame. The scent of humans, sweat, gunpowder, fear, and hatred, grew stronger. Mixed with it came the terrified scent of young wolves, pack members, Children. Diana sped forward, breaking into a small clearing seconds before Marcus. Two adolescent wolves, barely old enough to shift, cowered against a rocky outcropping. Three armed men in tactical gear advanced slowly, silver-loaded weapons raised. Without hesitation, Diana launched into action. She circled wide, deliberately snapping twigs to draw attention away from the young wolves. The hunters pivoted, training their weapons on the noise. Diana darted between trees, offering glimpses of her silver fur without providing a clean shot. Marcus understood her strategy immediately. While the hunters focused on Diana's distraction, he approached from the opposite direction, using his black fur to blend with the shadows. The young wolves sensed his presence and remained still, instinctively trusting their alpha. One hunter fired toward Diana's movement. The bullet splintered bark inches from her head. She growled low, not from fear, but calculation. Each shot revealed their positions more clearly, each movement telling a story of their training and intentions. These weren't ordinary hunters. Their movements betrayed military experience, coordinated, disciplined, precise. Silver Dawn Militia. The extremist group had grown bolder in recent months, their hatred for shifters fueled by ignorance and fear. Diana's wolf ducked beneath a fallen log, then burst from hiding directly in front of the nearest hunter. The man stumbled backward in surprise, firing wildly. She twisted mid-air, avoiding the shot while herding him toward where Marcus waited in the shadows. The alpha struck with devastating precision. His massive form knocked the hunter unconscious before the man could scream. One down, two remaining. The young wolves saw their opportunity and bolted from their hiding place, racing toward the safety of the packlands. The remaining hunters cursed, firing after them. Diana intercepted, her smaller body flying through the air to knock the second hunter's aim skyward. The shot discharged harmlessly into the trees. The third hunter took aim at Diana. Time slowed as the barrel aligned with her heart. Before he could pull the trigger, Marcus's black form materialized from the darkness, his jaws closing around the man's arm. The weapon fell into the snow as the hunter screamed in pain and terror. Within moments, both remaining hunters were disarmed and subdued, their weapons scattered across the snowy ground. Marcus stood over them, his wolf form radiating deadly intent. The men trembled, all bravado evaporated in the face of the alpha's power. Diana shifted back to human form, the cold now biting against her skin. She quickly retrieved a hunter's jacket, wrapping it around herself before checking their pulses and securing their weapons. Silver Dawn Militia, she confirmed, examining the insignia on their gear. Getting bolder. These aren't random hunters. They're organized, trained, military or ex-military. Marcus shifted as well, his human form materializing from the massive black wolf. He towered over the unconscious men, naked and unashamed in the moonlight. Diana handed him another jacket from the hunter's packs. "You recognize their tactics," he said, studying her with new interest. Diana nodded. 2 tours in Afghanistan, special forces. She checked the ammunition in one of the rifles. This isn't standard silver shot. It's military grade, custom designed. Someone's funding them. Someone with resources and technology. Marcus's expression darkened. "We need to alert the council. If they're targeting our young..." "It's more than random hatred," Diana finished his thought. "They want something specific. Information, perhaps, or test subjects." A branch snapped in the distance. Marcus tensed, positioning himself between Diana and the potential threat. Beta James emerged from the trees, his expression shifting from alarm to relief at the sight of his alpha. "Sir, there's an urgent situation at the main hall. The Southeastern Pac representatives have arrived early, demanding to speak with you about border violations." Marcus glanced at Diana, then back to James. "Secure these 3, full interrogation protocol when they wake, and find the youngsters who were targeted. Make sure they're safe in silence." James nodded, already shifting to wolf form to better transport the unconscious hunters. Before leaving, Marcus turned to Diana. His fingers brushed against the silver pendant that had returned to her throat after her transformation. "This is Talith Wern," he said, recognition in his voice. "An ancient symbol of wisdom and spiritual strength. Family heirloom?" "My mother's," Diana answered, surprised by his knowledge of the old ways. passed down through generations of women in my family. His fingers lingered on the pendant, the brief contact sending warmth cascading through her. Their eyes met, understanding passing between them without words. Then, with a final nod, Marcus turned and strode back toward the celebration, leaving Diana alone with questions multiplying in her mind like snowflakes in the winter air. 3 days passed, each filled with nervous energy rippling through the pack. Diana continued her work with medicinal herbs, but her thoughts continuously returned to that night. The confrontation with the hunters, the exchange with Marcus, the questions that challenged everything she had accepted about her place in the pack hierarchy. On the third evening, as twilight painted the snow-covered landscape in purples and deep blues, a messenger arrived at Diana's cabin. All unmated females were summoned to the Great Hall immediately. The summons was unprecedented. Diana changed quickly, choosing practical clothes rather than finery. Whatever this gathering entailed, she sensed it wasn't a social event. When she arrived at the Great Hall, Diana was shocked to find not only young females present, but women of all ages, including Sarah, whose silver hair gleamed in the firelight. Approximately 20 women stood in nervous clusters, exchanging theories about the unusual summons. Catherine Reed approached Diana, her perfect features arranged in an expression of barely concealed disdain. Her hand rested protectively over her slightly rounded belly, drawing attention to her pregnant state. "How curious to see you here," she said, her voice sweet with poison. "I didn't realize the Alpha King's invitation extended to veterans of your vintage." Diana maintained her composure, years of military discipline proving useful once again. The summons included all unmated females regardless of age. An interesting departure from tradition, wouldn't you say? Before Catherine could respond, the massive doors swung open. Silence fell immediately. Marcus entered, flanked by his 4 beta counselors. His gaze swept the room, acknowledging each woman present. "Thank you for answering the summons," he said, his deep voice filling the hall without effort. "I'll be direct. The Silver Dawn militia has escalated their activities against our kind. 3 nights ago, they targeted pack youngsters within our borders. Intelligence suggests this is part of a coordinated campaign against shifters throughout the region." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Diana remained still, processing the confirmation of her suspicions. "The world beyond our territories grows more complex," Marcus continued, "and our understanding of it must evolve if we are to survive. To that end, I'm establishing a strategic council, 5 female and 5 male representatives who will work together on defense, diplomacy, and long-term security for our pack." The whispers grew louder. Female representatives were rare enough. Strategic roles for unmated females were unprecedented. "This isn't a mating selection," Marcus clarified, silencing the excited chatter. "This is about capability, intelligence, and perspective. The chosen representatives will receive training in strategy, defense, and diplomatic relations." His eyes found Diana's, holding for the briefest moment before moving on. "Age and experience will be considered assets, not liabilities." Diana's breath caught. Was this for her benefit? The very idea seemed absurd, yet the timing, following their conversation by the creek. "Those interested will undergo 3 trials," announced Beta James, stepping forward. "The first begins tomorrow at dawn. Knowledge of pack history and strategic thinking. The second will test your physical capabilities and survival skills. The final trial will assess your judgment under pressure." The assembly erupted in excited conversation as the council members departed. Young women gathered in clusters, already strategizing or preening at the prospect of working closely with high-ranking males. Diana remained still, conflicted. The position sounded intriguing, meaningful work that valued the very experience that had rendered her too old in the mating market. Yet she couldn't shake the suspicion that this unprecedented opportunity had something to do with her conversation with Marcus. The timing was too convenient, his words about age and worth too fresh in her mind. "You're going to compete, aren't you?" Sarah appeared at Diana's side, her eyes bright with excitement. "I'm not sure it would be appropriate," Diana said carefully. Sarah scoffed. "Didn't you hear him? Age and experience will be considered assets. He might as well have pointed at you directly." "That's precisely what concerns me," Diana admitted. "If this is some form of charity—" "Diana Silverwood." Sarah's tone sharpened. "Stop undermining yourself. You're a decorated veteran. You speak 3 languages. You've maintained correspondence with traders from the coastal regions for years. You understand both military strategy and healing. If anyone deserves a place on this council, it's you." Her faith was touching, if perhaps misplaced. "There will be younger, stronger competitors. So let them outthink you then." Sarah squeezed her arm. "Promise me you'll at least try. What do you have to lose?" What indeed? Diana thought of her quiet life, fulfilling in its way, yet increasingly isolated as friends paired off and focused on their growing families. She thought of her mother's pendant, her words, "This will remind you of your worth when others forget." "Very well," she said finally. "I'll participate in the first trial at least." Dawn found Diana at the edge of the central clearing, dressed practically in dark jeans and a fitted sweater that allowed freedom of movement. About 15 females had gathered, fewer than had attended the announcement, but more competition than she'd expected. Most were in their 20s, though Diana spotted 2 girls barely out of adolescence, nervously shifting their weight from foot to foot. Catherine stood among them, her perfect features arranged in an expression of determined confidence. When she noticed Diana, surprise flickered across her face, quickly replaced by poorly concealed disdain. "Ladies!" James's voice cut through the morning air as he approached, scrolls tucked under one arm. "The first trial tests your knowledge of our history, neighboring packs, and potential allies or threats. You'll have 2 hours to complete your responses." A reasonable start. Diana had always been an avid reader, particularly of the geographical and political texts in the pack's small but well-maintained library. They were led to a long table set up beneath ancient pine trees. The morning sunlight filtered through the branches, creating dappled patterns across the parchment James placed before each of them. Diana scanned the questions quickly, relief washing over her. This at least she could manage. Questions about the 5 major river systems that defined pack territories, historical conflicts between northern and eastern packs, trade routes to human settlements, resources unique to each region, potential diplomatic leverage with the isolated mountain wolves. One question caught her attention. Identify the origins of the Silver Dawn militia and analyze their historical tactics against shifter populations. Diana's pen moved across the parchment with confidence. The Silver Dawn had originated in the 1800s, when a group of hunters had nearly decimated the wolf population in North America. What few humans knew was that almost half of those wolves had been shifters, their deaths leading to the near extinction of several ancient bloodlines. She wrote about the militia's revival during periods of social unrest, their connection to eugenics movements in the early 20th century, and their modern resurrection amid growing fears of non-human sentient beings. Diana included details that few pack members would know, information gathered through her military connections and personal research. By the time James called for their submissions, Diana had answered every question thoroughly, drawing on years of quiet study and conversations with traveling merchants who often sought healing herbs from her garden. "Results will be posted by midday," James announced. "The second trial begins this afternoon for those who advance." As they dispersed, Catherine sidled up beside Diana, her voice pitched low. "Impressive effort for someone your age, though I wonder if your physical limitations will become apparent in the next trial." Diana met her gaze steadily. "Then it's fortunate that knowledge was tested first, isn't it?" Catherine's eyes narrowed slightly before she turned away, joining a group of younger competitors who welcomed her with admiring smiles. Diana made her way back to her cabin, changing into a fresh sweater and allowing herself a brief rest. The mental exertion had been more taxing than anticipated, and the thought of a physical trial in the afternoon sent a flutter of anxiety through her stomach. A knock at her door roused her from uneasy contemplation. She opened it to find Sarah standing there, a small leather pouch in her hands. "I thought you might need this," she said, pressing the pouch into Diana's palm. Diana opened it to find a mixture of dried herbs, ginseng for energy, willow bark for potential pain, and something else she didn't immediately recognize. "What's this dark leaf?" she asked, rubbing it between her fingers. A smile crept across Sarah's weathered face. "Something I've been cultivating quietly. It strengthens the connection between human form and wolf spirit, makes shifting easier, less draining." Diana looked up sharply. "The physical trial will likely involve shifting," Sarah finished. "Most younger wolves take their abilities for granted, shifting casually and often. But those of us with more years," she tapped the pouch, "we can use every advantage." Diana hesitated. "Is this permitted?" Sarah chuckled. "It's a plant that grows in our territory, no different than eating protein before exertion or wearing proper footwear. Strategy, Diana. Use every tool at your disposal." After Sarah left, Diana prepared the tea as instructed, its earthy aroma filling her small kitchen. As she drank, warmth spread through her limbs, settling into her bones with a pleasant hum that made her wolf stir beneath her skin. The central clearing buzzed with tension when Diana arrived for the second trial. The remaining 15 candidates stood at the edge of the dense woodland that bordered their territory to the north. 4 of the 5 council members waited there, Marcus notably absent. Beta James stepped forward, his voice carrying across the assembled group. "Your task is simple in description, but complex in execution. Within the forest are 5 markers, each guarded by one of our senior warriors. You must locate at least 3 markers and return here before sunset." Murmurs rippled through the group. The forest stretched for miles, and 5 markers could be hidden anywhere within its vast expanse. "You will travel in your wolf form," James continued. "This tests not only your physical endurance, but your connection to your primal instincts. The markers emit a subtle scent, detectable only to those who fully embrace their wolf senses." Diana's stomach tightened. She hadn't shifted more than once in a day for years. Unlike the younger wolves, who changed forms as easily as changing clothes, her transformations had become increasingly taxing with age. Sarah's tea hummed through her veins, but would it be enough? "One final note," James said, his gaze sweeping over them. "The Guardians will not simply surrender the markers. You must demonstrate cunning, strategy, or strength to convince them to relinquish their charge. Violence is forbidden, but persuasion takes many forms." Catherine smirked, tossing her hair. She, like many younger females, undoubtedly planned to rely on her beauty and charm, weapons Diana could no longer wield with the same effect. "The trial begins now," James announced. "You may shift when ready." The younger women began their transformations immediately, their bodies blurring as they dropped to all fours, bones reshaping, fur sprouting across their skin. Within moments, a dozen wolves stood where young women had been, their coats ranging from russet to black to pale gray. Diana moved slightly apart, closing her eyes to focus. The tea's warmth intensified as she called to her wolf, feeling her stir beneath her skin. The familiar ache began, the price of transformation growing steeper with each passing year. "Come," she whispered internally. "We need each other today." The shift began slowly, then accelerated as Sarah's herbs took effect. Bones reformed with less pain than usual, muscles stretched and reconfigured, and fur, pale blonde like her hair, rippled across her body. When she opened her eyes, the world had transformed into a tapestry of scents and sounds, colors muted, but textures infinitely sharper. Her wolf was smaller than most, lean and quick rather than powerfully built, but her senses were keen. Diana inhaled deeply, sorting through the forest's complex aromatics, decomposing leaves, animal trails, moisture gathering in the hollows of ancient trees. The other wolves had already disappeared into the trees, eager to claim their markers. Diana took a more measured approach, circling the forest's edge, analyzing wind patterns. If the markers emitted scent, the afternoon breeze could carry hints of their locations. There, a faint anomaly in the air, something that didn't belong to the forest's natural perfume. Diana angled northwest, moving at a steady trot that preserved energy while covering ground efficiently. The scent grew stronger as she penetrated deeper into the woods, sunlight dimming as the canopy thickened overhead. After 20 minutes of careful tracking, Diana slowed, sensing a presence ahead. One of the guardians. She crept forward, keeping to the shadows. In a small clearing stood Mason, one of their most experienced warriors. Around his neck hung a small leather pouch, the marker. He seemed relaxed but alert, his experienced eyes scanning the surrounding trees. Direct confrontation would be futile. Mason had 3 decades of combat training, and even in her prime, Diana would never have overpowered him. She needed another approach. Diana circled the clearing, considering her options. Mason had always been intellectually curious, often visiting the healer's cottage to learn about medicinal plants. She shifted back to human form, the transformation quicker, but still draining. From a small pouch tied at her waist, Diana removed a sprig of the rare moonshade plant she'd harvested weeks ago. Its silver-blue leaves were distinctive, used in only the most potent healing mixtures. Taking a deep breath, she stepped into the clearing, the moonshade held before her. Mason turned sharply, then relaxed when he recognized her. "Diana," he said, his voice revealing surprise. "I didn't expect you to be among the candidates." "Knowledge takes many forms," she replied, holding up the moonshade, "including knowing what might interest a particular guardian." Understanding dawned in his eyes, followed by appreciation. "The elusive moonshade. Sarah mentioned you'd found a new growth near the eastern ridge." Diana nodded. "This specimen shows unusual coloration in the secondary leaves, perhaps indicating higher potency or a mutation worth studying." Mason's eyes fixed on the plant, his interest evident. "A trade, then, information for information, the marker for knowledge of where to find this particular strain." A smile spread across his weathered face. "Cunning, rather than force. Well played." He removed the marker from around his neck, extending it toward her. "The location?" As Diana described the hidden gully where the moonshade grew, she felt a strange pride. She might lack the physical advantages of youth, but experience had its own weapons. Marker secured, Diana shifted again, more painful this time, Sarah's tea wearing thin, and continued deeper into the forest. The second scent trail led her northeast toward the rocky terrain that bordered mountain wolf territory. This time she found Lydia, her powerful frame blocking a narrow pass between 2 large boulders. The marker hung from her belt. Unlike Mason, Lydia was all physicality, their pack's combat instructor with little interest in intellectual pursuits. Diana observed from concealment, noting how she paced the small area, occasionally glancing skyward to track the sun's position. 3 younger candidates had already tried and failed to claim her marker. Diana could smell their defeated scent retreating in different directions. This required a different strategy. Instead of hiding her approach, Diana emerged openly from the trees, still in wolf form. Lydia's eyes narrowed as she assessed her, older, smaller, seemingly less threatening than other candidates. Diana lowered herself to the ground, a non-threatening posture, then deliberately turned her gaze to a point beyond Lydia's shoulder. Curious, she glanced behind her, finding nothing but giving Diana the opportunity to dart forward with unexpected speed, not toward her, but toward the narrow crevice in the rock face behind her position. Lydia whirled back, startled by her movement, then barked a laugh when she realized what Diana had done. The crevice was a natural amplifier. Any sound made within it would echo throughout the mountain pass, potentially drawing other wolves to their location. Diana positioned herself at its entrance, making her intention clear. Cooperate or face interference from additional candidates, complicating Lydia's task. "Clever," Lydia conceded, unclipping the marker from her belt. "Using the environment, rather than matching strength directly. You've earned this." Diana accepted the marker with a respectful nod, already calculating her next move. 2 markers claimed, 1 more needed before sunset. The sun had begun its westward descent. She had perhaps 2 hours remaining. Her third target proved more elusive. The scent trail meandered, doubling back on itself several times, deliberately confusing any trackers. Diana recognized the tactics of Adrian, their tracking specialist. He wouldn't be outsmarted easily. Following the false trails would waste precious time. Instead, Diana considered Adrian's personality, his typical strategies. He valued efficiency above all else, which meant... Diana changed direction, heading for the highest point in the forest, an ancient lightning-struck oak that towered above the surrounding trees. From there, Adrian could observe much of the forest while staying hidden. The climb taxed her already weary muscles, but she forced herself onward, shifting back to human form to use her hands for the final ascent. As she suspected, Adrian perched among the uppermost branches, the marker dangling from a limb just out of easy reach. "Impressive deduction," he called down when he spotted her. "Most have been running in circles, following my false trails." Diana clung to the trunk, catching her breath. "You've always preferred the high ground, tactically sound." He smiled but made no move to lower the marker. "Now that you've found me, how do you plan to claim your prize? Those branches won't support your weight." He was right. The upper limbs were too thin for her to climb out and retrieve the marker directly. Another puzzle to solve. Diana studied their surroundings, noting how the afternoon breeze made the branches sway. An idea formed. "The trial forbids violence," she said, "but says nothing about property." Before he could respond, Diana broke off a nearby dead branch and used it to create leverage against a living limb. The resulting tension pulled the smaller branches in Adrian's area, setting them swaying more violently. The marker's branch bent, dipped, and finally snapped under the pressure. The leather pouch tumbled down through the layers of foliage. Diana caught it before it hit the ground, securing her third marker. Adrian's laugh echoed from above. "Well executed. I look forward to seeing what you do in the third trial." The return journey tested Diana's endurance to its limits. Exhaustion from multiple shifts and physical exertion weighed on her. Each step required conscious effort when the forest's edge finally came into view. The sun hung low on the horizon, painting the sky in vivid oranges and reds. Diana emerged from the trees to find James waiting, tallying the returning candidates. Several had already returned, including Catherine, who sat on a boulder, looking remarkably unruffled despite the trial's challenges. 3 markers, Diana announced, presenting her hard-won trophies. James's eyebrows rose slightly as he recorded her success. "Well done, Diana. You're the 5th to complete the trial successfully." Diana nodded, too tired for conversation, and moved to rest against a nearby tree. Her body ached, muscles protesting every movement, but satisfaction warmed her more effectively than any fire. She had passed the second trial. As twilight deepened, the final count was made. Of 15 who began, only 8 had secured the required 3 markers before sunset. Catherine, of course, was among them, as were 2 other younger females, whose names Diana barely knew. The remaining successful candidates were older, though still younger than Diana, their expressions reflecting the same weary pride she felt. "The final trial will take place tomorrow evening," James announced. "Rest well. You'll need your wits and courage for what comes next." As they dispersed, Catherine fell into step beside Diana, her voice pitched low. "Surprised you managed it, especially with the shifting requirements. Must have been difficult at your age." The barb was delivered with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Age provides alternatives to brute force," Diana replied evenly. "But congratulations on your success as well." Catherine's smile tightened. "Just don't get too comfortable. The final trial typically requires personal appeal, the ability to influence through presence and persuasion." The implication was clear. Whatever the third challenge entailed, she believed youth and beauty would prevail, where knowledge and strategy could not. Perhaps she was right, but Diana had come too far to surrender now. She was nearly to her cabin when a figure emerged from the shadows of the communal gathering hall. Marcus Blackwood stood in the fading light, his powerful frame unmistakable even in the growing darkness. "Walk with me," he said. Not a question, but not quite a command either. Despite her exhaustion, Diana found herself falling into step beside him as he led them toward the quiet creek shore. They walked in silence until reaching the water's edge, where silver moonlight danced across the frozen surface. "You retrieved markers from Mason, Lydia, and Adrian," he said finally. Diana glanced at him, surprised. "You were watching." I observe all trials personally, though discreetly. His gaze remained on the frozen creek. Your approaches were unexpected. Is that a criticism or a compliment? The question slipped out before she could temper it with more formal language. Fatigue had lowered her usual barriers. To her surprise, Marcus chuckled, a deep, warm sound she'd never heard from him before. Decidedly the latter. Most candidates attempted to overpower or charm their way to success. You analyzed each guardian and crafted a specific strategy. I used what I had available, she said simply. He turned to face her fully, the moonlight catching the silver strands in his dark hair. And what will you use tomorrow, Diana? What weapons do you possess for the final trial? The directness of his question caught her off guard. I don't know what the trial entails, do I? His eyes, intense and unreadable, held hers. The first trial tested knowledge, the second, physical capability and adaptability. What remains to be evaluated in potential strategic representatives? Understanding dawned. Judgment under pressure, social intelligence. He nodded, the ghost of a smile touching his lips. 8 candidates remain. Tomorrow you'll face the council, all 5 of us, with a strategic scenario requiring immediate response. Your decisions, your composure, your persuasiveness, all will determine your fitness for the role. Diana's heart sank slightly. This was where Catherine's youth and natural charisma would shine, where her age might truly become a disadvantage rather than a strength. Marcus must have read something in her expression, for he stepped closer, his voice dropping to a near whisper. You doubt yourself still. It wasn't a question. Diana glanced away, unable to maintain eye contact with the intensity of his gaze. Catherine was right about one thing, she admitted. Personal appeal matters in diplomacy. Youth, beauty, charm. These are weapons I can no longer wield as effectively as the younger candidates. Is that what you believe diplomacy requires? Pretty faces and charming smiles? The edge in his voice drew Diana's eyes back to his. I've seen beautiful envoys start wars with careless words, while plain-spoken truth-tellers forge lasting peace. His conviction was almost tangible in the night air between them. Diana found herself wanting to believe him, to believe that experience and judgment might truly be valued over the superficial advantages of youth. Rest, he said, his tone gentler now. Tomorrow comes soon enough. As he turned to leave, a question burned in Diana's throat, demanding voice despite her better judgment. Why did you create these positions now? She called after him. Was it because of what I said at the creek? Marcus paused, his broad shoulders silhouetted against the moonlit ice. For a long moment, she thought he wouldn't answer. Let's say, he replied finally, that our conversation confirmed what I had long suspected, that our pack wastes valuable resources when we discard experience in favor of youth alone. With that enigmatic response, he disappeared into the darkness, leaving Diana standing alone by the creek's edge, her mother's pendant warm against her skin. Sleep came in fitful bursts that night, her mind racing with possibilities for the final trial. By morning, Diana had dark circles beneath her eyes and muscles that protested every movement, after effects of yesterday's multiple shifts. She soaked in a hot bath infused with healing herbs, letting the warmth seep into her aching body while rehearsing diplomatic scenarios in her head. A knock at her door roused her from contemplation. She wrapped herself in a robe and found Sarah on her doorstep, her eyes bright with excitement. Everyone's talking about yesterday's trial, she said, bustling past Diana into the cabin. They say you outwitted 3 senior warriors without once resorting to physical confrontation. Diana poured them both tea, wincing as her shoulder twinged. I merely played to my strengths. Which is precisely why you'll excel today as well, Sarah said, placing a large package on the table. I brought you this for the final trial. Diana unwrapped the brown paper to find a dress of deep sapphire blue, its fabric flowing like water through her fingers. Unlike the fashions favored by younger wolves, all low necklines and form-fitting silhouettes, this gown was elegantly tailored with intricate silver embroidery at the collar and sleeves. Sarah, I can't accept this. Nothing compared to seeing my dearest friend take her rightful place on the council, she interrupted firmly. Besides, the neckline will showcase your mother's pendant perfectly. Tears pricked at the corners of Diana's eyes. Thank you, she managed, the words inadequate for the depth of her gratitude. Now, Sarah said briskly, tell me what you know about the final trial. Diana repeated what Marcus had shared. A strategic scenario requiring judgment under pressure. The younger candidates will have beauty and charm on their side, Sarah scoffed. Beauty fades faster than spring blossoms. What remains is character. She squeezed Diana's hand. Show them yours. After Sarah left, Diana spent the day in quiet preparation, reviewing historical diplomatic conflicts from the Pack archives, practicing calming breathing techniques, and finally, as evening approached, donning the beautiful gown. The mirror reflected a woman she barely recognized. The sapphire fabric complemented her fair complexion, while the cut of the dress lent dignity to her slender frame. Her blonde hair, streaked with a few strands of silver, fell in loose waves around her shoulders, Sarah's suggestion rather than her usual practical braid. Her mother's pendant gleamed at her throat, catching the light with every breath. Diana looked, not young certainly, but striking in a way that owed nothing to youth and everything to presence. The main hall buzzed with nervous energy when she arrived. The 8 remaining candidates gathered in a small antechamber, each dressed in their finest attire. Catherine wore a gown of emerald silk that displayed her youthful curves to maximum advantage, her dark hair arranged in an elaborate style adorned with small jewels. Her eyes widened slightly when she saw Diana, a flicker of uncertainty crossing her perfect features before her mask of confidence returned. Individual assessments, she informed Diana, her tone carefully neutral. They're calling us in one by one. 2 have already gone. Diana nodded, taking a seat on one of the wooden benches that lined the wall. Do we know the scenario? Different for each candidate, apparently, replied an older woman named Sarah, her expression tense. Valerie emerged looking shaken, wouldn't say what they asked her. Before Diana could respond, the heavy oak door opened and James appeared. Diana, he called, the council will see you now. Heart hammering against her ribs, Diana rose and followed him into the main chamber. The vast room had been transformed. Instead of the usual long tables, 5 ornate chairs formed a semicircle at the center. In them sat Marcus and the 4 beta leaders, each wearing formal attire that emphasized their authority. A single chair faced them, positioned in the center of their arc, a clear physical manifestation of being judged from all sides. Diana, Marcus acknowledged as she took her seat. His face revealed nothing, though his eyes lingered briefly on the pendant at her throat. Thank you for your participation in the trials thus far. Diana inclined her head respectfully, folding her hands in her lap to hide their slight tremor. Thank you for the opportunity, Alpha King. The scenario you will address, began Nathaniel, the Northern Beta, involves a delicate situation with the Southern Pack. Their delegation arrives tomorrow, claiming that one of our hunters trespassed on their territory and killed a protected white stag. They demand reparations and a formal apology from the Alpha King himself. Diana nodded, processing the information. The white stag was sacred to the Southern wolves. Killing one was not merely poaching, but sacrilege in their culture. Our hunter, continued Nathaniel, swears he never crossed the boundary markers. He admits to tracking a white stag, but insists the kill occurred well within our territory. The Southern delegation includes their high priestess, added Rebecca, the Southern Beta. She is volatile in matters of religious significance. You have been assigned as liaison, Marcus said, his deep voice drawing Diana's full attention. The delegation refuses to meet with me until preliminary terms are established. You must navigate this first encounter, determine the truth, and establish a foundation for resolution, all without committing us to unwarranted concessions or insulting their spiritual beliefs. Diana took a measured breath. May I ask questions to clarify the situation? Marcus nodded once. The hunter. Does he have a history of boundary violations or dishonesty? None, replied James. Evan is young but respected, with an impeccable record. And the white stag, Was it examined? Any distinctive markings that might identify it specifically as the sacred animal from Southern Territory rather than a similar creature from our forests? Rebecca raised an eyebrow, appearing impressed by the question. The carcass was ceremonially burned by the Southern advance scout who discovered it, as their custom dictates for sacred animals. Convenient, Diana murmured, then more clearly. So we have no evidence either way, just conflicting claims. Precisely, said Marcus. Now tell us how you would approach this encounter. Diana considered for a moment, organizing her thoughts. I would begin by receiving them with full ceremonial honors according to Southern custom, sacred herbs burning, offering of unsweetened berries, and ritual washing before discussions begin. This demonstrates respect for their spiritual practices without admitting guilt. Nathaniel nodded slightly, making a note on the parchment before him. Rather than addressing the accusation immediately, I would invite their high priestess to explain the white stag's significance in their culture, allowing her to feel heard and establishing that we recognize the seriousness of the matter from their perspective. She will demand immediate acknowledgement of our transgression, countered Rebecca. Southern wolves are not known for patience in religious matters. Which is precisely why patience must be modeled, Diana responded. I would listen fully to their grievances, then suggest a joint ritual at the site of the kill, inviting both their spiritual leaders and our hunter to return to the location. Marcus leaned forward slightly. To what purpose? Twofold, Diana explained. First, returning to the site might reveal physical evidence we currently lack: tracks, scent markers, territorial signs that could establish where the kill truly occurred. Second, regardless of the outcome, sharing in a ritual acknowledges the spiritual loss without accepting blame for causing it. And if the evidence confirms our hunter crossed the boundary? Asked James. Then we offer appropriate reparations, not from coercion, but from principle. We acknowledge the violation, punish the hunter according to both our laws and theirs, and perhaps offer to participate in the raising of a new sacred animal. And if the evidence confirms the kill occurred in our territory, pressed Nathaniel, then we still acknowledge their loss while firmly establishing our innocence. I would suggest a boundary clarification ritual, renewing the markers between our territories to prevent future confusion. This transforms conflict into an opportunity for strengthened relations. The council members exchanged glances. Rebecca made another notation, her expression unreadable. The high priestess, Marcus said, his tone suddenly sharper, accuses you personally of orchestrating the hunter's actions as an intentional insult to Southern spiritual practices. She demands you be removed from negotiations. Your response? The unexpected accusation sent a jolt through Diana, but she maintained her composure. I would calmly state that while I respect her pain and understand how grief might seek targets, I had no involvement with the hunter's actions. I would then offer to step aside temporarily, not out of guilt, but as a demonstration of our commitment to truth above pride. I would suggest another liaison continue while I undergo a ritual cleansing to remove any spiritual taint she perceives in me. Marcus's eyes held Diana's, searching. Removing yourself from negotiations could be seen as weakness or admission of guilt. Or as strength and flexibility, she countered. By voluntarily stepping back, rather than defensively clinging to position, I demonstrate that our priority is resolution, not protecting individual egos, even my own. This often disarms those who come seeking conflict rather than solution. A ghost of a smile touched Marcus's lips, gone so quickly Diana might have imagined it. Final question, said James. The Southern Alpha, known for his temper, unexpectedly joins the delegation. He insults our Alpha King directly, calling him weak for sending a female, an aging female at that, to resolve what should be settled between male leaders. Your response? Heat flushed Diana's cheeks, but she kept her voice measured. I would remind the Southern Alpha that wisdom lies in choosing the right tool for each task. A blade may be impressive, but sometimes a needle accomplishes what a sword cannot. In matters requiring delicate precision rather than brute force, Our Alpha King demonstrates true strength by selecting based on capability rather than tradition." She paused, then added, "I would also note that age brings perspective. Young wolves see only the prey before them. Seasoned hunters understand the entire forest." Silence fell over the chamber. Marcus studied Diana intently, his expression revealing nothing of his thoughts. The four betas exchanged glances, some making final notations on their parchments. "Thank you, Diana," Marcus said finally. "You may go. Results will be announced tomorrow at midday." Diana rose, bowed respectfully to the council, and departed with as much grace as her trembling legs allowed. Outside, she released a shuddering breath, uncertain whether her performance had impressed or alienated the council. Catherine waited in the antechamber, rising gracefully as Diana emerged. "How was it?" she asked, curiosity overcoming their rivalry momentarily. "Challenging," Diana replied truthfully. "They present a complex diplomatic scenario and evaluate your proposed approach." Catherine nodded, her confidence visibly returning. "Diplomacy is all about making people like you and want to please you. I excel at that." As she swept past Diana into the council chamber, Diana wondered if she was right. Perhaps charm and beauty would indeed prove more valuable than experience and judgment. Perhaps she had once again reached for something beyond her grasp. The night passed slowly, sleep eluding Diana entirely as she replayed the trial in her mind, questioning every response, imagining better answers she might have given. By dawn, she had abandoned any attempt at rest, instead walking to the creek to watch the sun rise over the frozen water. The morning mist hung low over the surface, creating ethereal shapes that danced and swirled with each gentle breeze. Diana sat on the fallen log, the same one where Marcus and she had spoken that first night, and let the peace of the place wash over her. "You're up early," Diana startled, turning to find Marcus standing a few paces away. How did he always manage to approach so silently? "As are you," she replied, her voice husky from lack of sleep. He moved closer, gesturing to the space beside her on the log. "May I?" Diana nodded, shifting slightly to make room, acutely aware of his proximity as he settled next to her. They sat in silence for several minutes, watching the mist reshape itself across the creek's frozen surface. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked finally. "Too many thoughts," Diana admitted, second-guessing every word I spoke yesterday. He nodded, his gaze still on the ice. "A common affliction after such trials. For what it's worth, your answers were illuminating." The ambiguity of his response made Diana smile despite her nervousness. Illuminating could mean many things. A wildfire is illuminating, but also destructive. A low chuckle escaped him. Not destructive, no, though perhaps challenging to certain established perspectives. They lapsed into silence again, strangely comfortable despite the power imbalance between them. "May I ask you something?" Diana ventured finally. He turned slightly toward her, an invitation to continue. "Why are you really creating this strategic council? Our pack has maintained isolation for generations. What changed?" Marcus was quiet for so long, Diana thought he might not answer. When he did, his voice was softer than she'd ever heard it. "When I traveled among humans as part of Delta Force, I saw something our kind has forgotten. Their societies value diverse voices, young and old, male and female. They understand that security comes not from strength alone, but from connection." He paused. "Our isolation has made us stagnant, set in traditions that may have served us once, but now hold us back." "Like discarding females after their prime mating years?" Diana asked, unable to keep a hint of bitterness from her voice. His eyes, when they met hers, held unexpected warmth. "Like wasting the wisdom and perspective of our most experienced members. Yes." The sincerity in his voice stirred something in Diana, hope perhaps, or the first fragile tendrils of trust. "The Strategic Council is one step toward changing that." Before she could respond, voices called from the direction of the village. The council members emerged from the tree line, followed by the candidates and what appeared to be most of the pack. "It seems," Marcus said, rising to his feet, that the announcement has been moved forward. Diana's heart lurched painfully against her ribs. This was it, the moment that would determine whether her efforts had earned her a place or merely set her up for public disappointment. "Shall we?" Marcus extended his hand to help her rise. Diana hesitated only briefly before placing her fingers in his, feeling the strength and warmth of his grip as he assisted her to her feet. Together, they walked back toward the gathering, his hand falling away as they reached the assembled crowd. James stepped forward as Diana and Marcus approached, his expression revealing nothing. "Alpha King, the council has reached its decision regarding the strategic appointments." Marcus nodded. "Proceed." The candidates formed a loose semicircle before the council members, their faces composed but tension radiating from each. Catherine stood directly across from Diana, her perfect features arranged in an expression of confident anticipation. "After careful evaluation of all 3 trials," James announced, "the council has selected the following 5 candidates to serve as our strategic representatives." The crowd fell silent, anticipation thick in the air as he unfolded a parchment and began to read. Sarah Edwards. The older woman beside Diana exhaled sharply, her shoulders dropping in relief. A good choice. Sarah had decades of experience as a teacher with natural diplomatic instincts. Valerie Clark. Another seasoned choice. Valerie had traveled extensively in her youth and spoke several human languages fluently. Catherine Reed. No surprise there. Despite Diana's misgivings about her attitude, Catherine's intelligence and natural charisma made her a logical selection. She stepped forward, accepting the position with a graceful bow that nonetheless conveyed triumph. 2 positions remained. Diana's heart hammered so loudly she was certain those with enhanced hearing could detect it. James's eyes swept over the remaining candidates before returning to his parchment. Lydia Winters. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Lydia was one of the warriors who had guarded markers during the 2nd trial, not a candidate at all. Yet the choice made sense. Her combat expertise would be valuable in assessing security concerns. 1 position left. Diana forced herself to breathe normally, to keep her expression neutral despite the hope and fear warring within her. James paused, his gaze meeting Marcus's for the briefest moment before he announced the final name. Diana Silverwood. Time seemed to suspend as the sound of her name hung in the air. Had she imagined it? But no, James was looking directly at her, and heads were turning in her direction. She had been chosen. "The 5 representatives will begin their training immediately," James continued, but his words seemed distant, as though coming from underwater. "You will relocate to the Central Territory within 3 days." The formal announcement complete, the crowd began to disperse. Some approached the newly appointed representatives with congratulations. Others, particularly those with unsuccessful candidates in their families, departed quickly, disappointment evident in their postures. Catherine was immediately surrounded by admirers, her laughter ringing across the clearing as she accepted their praise. By contrast, Diana stood somewhat apart, still processing the reality that she had earned a place. "Congratulations," said a quiet voice beside her. Diana turned to find Sarah, her weathered face wreathed in a knowing smile. "I can hardly believe it," Diana admitted. Sarah took her hands in hers, her grip surprisingly strong for her age. "I can. You've always been more than others could see." Her eyes, wise with decades of observation, studied Diana's face. "Though it seems our Alpha King sees clearly enough." Before Diana could respond to her cryptic statement, Sarah was pushed aside as Victor Reed approached, his face a storm of barely contained rage. "An interesting outcome," he said, voice tight with controlled fury. "One might wonder what special favors were exchanged to secure such an unexpected appointment." Diana stiffened. "If you have concerns about the selection process, Victor, I suggest you address them directly with the council." "Oh, I intend to," he said, stepping closer, his voice dropping to ensure only she could hear. "I've observed how our Alpha watches you, how conveniently this new council formed after your private conversations. Catherine may have been selected as a token gesture, but we both know who's truly found favor." Diana felt heat rise in her cheeks, anger rather than embarrassment. Your insinuations are as baseless as they are insulting, not just to me, but to Alpha Blackwood. Time will tell, Victor sneered. Just remember your place, Diana. Council member or not, you're still just a broken soldier playing at politics. He stalked away before she could respond, leaving Diana shaken not by his words, but by the naked hostility behind them. She had expected jealousy from rejected candidates, but this felt more personal, more dangerous. Ignore him, Sarah advised, returning to Diana's side. Wounded pride makes men foolish. Diana nodded, but uneasiness lingered. Victor's animosity seemed disproportionate to mere disappointment over Catherine. Something deeper was at work. The remainder of the day passed in a blur of congratulations and preparations. By evening, Diana found herself alone in her cabin, packing essential belongings for the move to Central Territory. As she carefully wrapped her medicinal herbs and tools, a knock sounded at her door. Beta Nathaniel stood outside, his formal demeanor softened by a rare smile. The Alpha King requests your presence, in private. Curious glances followed as Diana accompanied Nathaniel to the council building, a sturdy structure of stone and timber that served as the administrative center of their pack. He led her to a side entrance, then up a narrow staircase to a part of the building she'd never entered. Wait here, he instructed, gesturing to a small antechamber before continuing down the hallway. The room was simply furnished but elegant. A polished wooden table, several comfortable chairs, and large windows that offered views of the forest beyond the settlement. Diana moved to the window, watching as pack members returned to their daily routines following the announcement. They would adjust quickly. Their kind always did. They'll adapt faster than you might expect, came Marcus's deep voice from the doorway. Our kind survives through adaptability. Diana turned to face him, uncertain of the proper protocol. Should she bow? Address him formally? He seemed to sense her hesitation and gestured to the chairs. Please sit. This isn't a formal meeting. Diana settled into one of the chairs, noticing that he chose to sit across from her rather than behind the imposing desk at the room's far end, a choice that subtly equalized their positions. You're wondering why I asked to speak with you separately, he said. His directness was refreshing as always. The thought had crossed my mind. 2 reasons. First, to personally congratulate you. Your performance throughout the trials was exemplary, particularly your response to the diplomatic scenario. Thank you, Diana said, warmth spreading through her at his praise, though I'm sure others performed equally well. They performed differently, he corrected. Each selected representative brings unique strengths to the council. Yours happens to be a perspective I find particularly valuable. The intensity of his gaze made Diana glance away momentarily. And the second reason? To discuss your specific role within the Strategic Council. He leaned forward slightly. The others will focus on relations with neighboring packs, border negotiations, trade agreements, all vital functions. But not my function? Diana asked, confusion creeping in. Your primary responsibility will be more specialized. His expression grew serious. I want you to serve as our liaison to human settlements. Surprise rendered Diana momentarily speechless. Relations with humans were virtually non-existent. Centuries of mutual suspicion and occasional violence had left a chasm between their kinds that few had attempted to bridge. May I ask why? Because you question tradition without rejecting it entirely. Because you value wisdom regardless of its source. His expression grew more serious. And because the isolation of our kind cannot continue if we hope to survive another century. The conviction in his voice was unmistakable. This wasn't merely a diplomatic initiative, but something deeply personal to him, a vision of the future he was determined to realize. Humans fear what they don't understand, Diana said carefully, and we've given them little opportunity to understand us. He nodded, satisfaction evident in his expression. Exactly. Fear breeds conflict. Understanding creates possibility. It won't be easy, she cautioned. Centuries of separation have left both sides with deeply ingrained prejudices. which is precisely why I need someone with patience, insight, and the courage to challenge assumptions. His gaze held hers. Someone like you. The weight of his trust settled over Diana, daunting, yet strangely exhilarating. This was more than a position. It was an opportunity to reshape the future relationship between their kinds. I accept, she said simply. Relief flashed briefly across his features before his composure returned. Good. You'll receive specialized training before your first assignment. He hesitated uncharacteristically. I'll be personally overseeing much of your preparation. Something shifted in the air between them, a subtle change in energy that made Diana's heart beat faster despite her efforts to remain professionally composed. I'll do my best to learn quickly, she promised. Marcus rose, signaling the end of their meeting. Your things will be transported to the Central Territory tomorrow. The Eastern Residence has been prepared for you. The Eastern Residence, one of the finest dwellings in the Central Territory, typically reserved for visiting dignitaries. The assignment spoke volumes about the importance he placed on this new initiative. Diana stood, inclining her head respectfully. Thank you for this opportunity, Alpha King. Marcus, he said unexpectedly. When we're working together directly, I prefer Marcus. The informality startled Diana, but she nodded. Marcus, then. As she turned to leave, his voice stopped her at the threshold. Diana, the pendant you wear? It was your mother's? Diana touched the silver piece at her throat, surprised by the personal question. Yes, her final gift to me. He nodded, as though confirming something to himself. It suits you. The simple statement carried a weight Diana couldn't fully decipher, but warmth bloomed in her chest nonetheless as she departed. The celebration at Sarah's home that evening was thankfully modest, a small gathering of close friends, good food, and quiet conversation rather than the boisterous festivities Diana dreaded. As midnight approached, she slipped away, needing solitude to process the day's events. Her feet carried her once more to the creek's edge, where stars reflected like scattered diamonds across the ice. Tomorrow would bring profound change. A new home, new responsibilities, a new chapter of life she had never anticipated. Diana sensed his presence before she heard him approach, a preternatural awareness of his distinctive energy. I thought I might find you here, Marcus said, emerging from the shadows. It seems to be becoming our meeting place, Diana observed. He joined her by the frozen water, his powerful presence somehow comforting rather than intimidating now. Do you regret accepting the position? Not regret, no. Perhaps apprehension mixed with excitement. Diana studied his profile in the moonlight. This initiative means a great deal to you. It wasn't a question, but he answered anyway. More than most understand. He gazed across the ice, his expression softening with memory. During my time with Delta Force, I worked alongside humans who never suspected what I was. One night in Afghanistan, our unit was ambushed. I was gravely wounded, injuries that would have revealed my nature once they began healing at an inhuman rate. The personal revelation surprised Diana. Marcus rarely spoke of his past. A medic in our unit, Dr. Eliza Chen, found me as I was struggling to hide from the others. She saw me begin to shift involuntarily from the trauma. His voice grew quieter. She should have reported me, should have been terrified. Instead, she treated my wounds, kept my secret, and covered for me until I could control the shifting again. She wasn't afraid? Diana asked. She was terrified, he admitted, but her compassion outweighed her fear. She said something I've never forgotten. Different blood, same heart. The simple phrase lingered in the night air, profound in its elemental truth. She showed me that coexistence is possible, he continued. Not easy, not immediate, but possible. That vision has guided me since becoming Alpha. Understanding dawned. That's why you created these positions, why you're risking tradition for change. He turned to face Diana fully, moonlight illuminating the conviction in his features. Some traditions deserve preservation, others are chains disguised as protection. The words resonated deeply with Diana's own unspoken thoughts. They stood in companionable silence for several minutes, the gentle creaking of ice against the shore, the only sound between them. "Tomorrow begins your new role," Marcus said finally. "Are you ready?" Diana touched her mother's pendant, drawing strength from the connection to her memory. "Ready to try, ready to learn." "That," he said softly, "is all anyone can ask." The silence that followed was comfortable, filled with unspoken understanding. Diana found herself studying his profile, the strong line of his jaw, the silver threading through his dark hair, the scar that added character rather than diminishing his striking appearance. She wondered what battles had given him that mark, what experiences had shaped the man who now led their pack with such vision. As if sensing her thoughts, Marcus turned to face her. His eyes, reflecting the starlight, held an intensity that made her breath catch. "You've served in combat," he said, not a question, but an observation. Diana nodded. 2 tours in Afghanistan, Special Forces reconnaissance and intelligence. "You saw things there that changed you." Again, not a question. Diana felt a strange relief at being so intuitively understood. "Yes, both beautiful and terrible." "The humans I served with showed extraordinary courage," Marcus said, his gaze distant with memory. "Loyalty to each other that rivaled any pack bond, yet they also demonstrated cruelty our kind can scarcely imagine." "They contain multitudes," Diana agreed, "capacity for both tremendous compassion and horrific violence." "Just as we do." Marcus's voice dropped lower. "The difference is, they've learned to question themselves, to evolve their thinking. We've remained static for centuries, clinging to traditions that may no longer serve us." Diana considered this. Change comes at a price. Not everyone will welcome it. "I'm counting on that." A smile touched his lips, revealing a hint of predator. "Opposition means the change matters." A cold gust of wind swept across the creek, carrying snowflakes that sparkled in the moonlight. Diana shivered slightly. "You should rest," Marcus said, noticing her reaction to the cold. "Tomorrow begins early." As they walked back toward the settlement, Diana felt a curious sense of alignment. For years, she had existed at the margins of pack life, respected for her skills, but never truly integrated. Now, somehow, she found herself at the center of a transformation that could reshape their future. Dawn arrived with a flurry of activity. Pack members helped load Diana's belongings onto sleds for transport to Central Territory. Sarah embraced her tearfully, extracting promises of regular visits. By mid-morning, Diana found herself traveling through the forest alongside Marcus and the other newly appointed council members. Catherine maintained a careful distance, her demeanor coolly professional. The tension between them remained, but Diana sensed it had shifted from personal rivalry to political calculation. Catherine was too ambitious to waste energy on petty conflicts when advancement required cooperation. Central Territory sprawled across a valley protected by mountains on 3 sides. Unlike the scattered dwellings of the outer territories, buildings here formed a cohesive community, the administrative heart of their pack. Stone and timber structures lined well-maintained paths, with the Great Hall rising at the center like a cathedral to their heritage. Marcus led them to a cluster of 5 residences arranged in a semicircle east of the Great Hall. "Your new homes," he announced, "each positioned to correspond with your primary responsibilities." The eastern residence stood slightly apart from the others, a 2-story structure of gray stone with large windows and a sloped roof designed to shed heavy snow. When Diana entered, she found it already prepared with furnishings that somehow reflected her personal taste: simple, elegant, functional. The main floor contained a spacious living area, dining room, and a fully equipped kitchen. Most surprising was a room dedicated entirely to herbal medicine. Shelves lining the walls, a large workbench positioned before windows that would provide excellent natural light, and cabinets filled with supplies of higher quality than Diana had ever owned. Upstairs, she discovered a bedroom with views of both the settlement and the forest beyond, a study filled with books on human history and culture, and a bathroom with a copper tub large enough to ease aching muscles after shifting. Does it meet your needs? Diana turned to find Marcus standing in the doorway of the study, watching her reaction to the carefully prepared space. It exceeds them, she admitted. The herb room especially. How did you know? A slight smile touched his lips. I observe. It's a necessary skill for leadership. Diana ran her fingers along the spines of the books. These texts on human society, they're remarkably comprehensive. I've collected them over years, he said, moving to stand beside her. Many came from my time among humans. Others were acquired through trusted traders. They're yours now, essential tools for your new role. His proximity sent a current of awareness through Diana's body, a reaction she struggled to control. She focused on the books, pulling one from the shelf to disguise her momentary discomfort. The Art of War, she read, examining the ancient text. Sun Tzu? Understanding human strategies helps us anticipate their actions, Marcus explained. Their military thinking especially reveals their approach to perceived threats. Diana nodded, replacing the book. When do we begin? Official council training starts tomorrow, he said, but your specialized preparation begins now, if you're ready. Now? Marcus gestured toward the window. The sooner we establish connections with human settlements, the stronger our position against the Silver Dawn. There's someone I'd like you to meet first. Curiosity piqued. Diana followed him outside and through the settlement to a small cabin at its western edge. Unlike the other buildings, this one appeared deliberately unremarkable, easy to overlook among the grander structures of Central Territory. Marcus knocked in a precise pattern. The door opened to reveal a woman in her early 60s, her gray-streaked hair pulled into a practical bun, her posture erect despite her age. Alpha Blackwood, she acknowledged with a nod that conveyed respect without subservience. Her gaze shifted to Diana, sharp with intelligence. This must be your new liaison. Diana Silverwood, Marcus confirmed. Diana, this is Dr. Elizabeth Chen, our resident human expert on shifter physiology. Diana couldn't hide her shock. A human? Here, in the heart of wolf territory? Dr. Chen's mouth curved in a knowing smile. Not what you expected, I take it. Diana struggled to find words. No, I wasn't aware we had human residents. Resident, singular, Dr. Chen corrected. A closely guarded secret for obvious reasons. Please come in before someone sees you standing at my door like confused tourists. The interior of the cabin was as unremarkable as its exterior, deliberately so, Diana suspected. Only the presence of sophisticated medical equipment in one corner suggested anything unusual about its occupant. Dr. Chen was the medic who saved me in Afghanistan, Marcus explained once they were seated. Understanding dawned. You're Eliza Chen, Diana said. The one who said, different blood, same heart, Dr. Chen finished with a dismissive wave. Yes, yes. He's turned my moment of panic into some profound philosophical statement. What I was actually thinking was more like, holy shit, werewolves are real, and I'm going to need a lot more bandages. Despite herself, Diana laughed. The doctor's frankness was refreshing after the formal interactions of pack politics. Eliza has been instrumental in developing our understanding of human society from an insider's perspective, Marcus said, and in researching how our physiologies differ and align. Fascinating work, Dr. Chen said, her enthusiasm evident. Shifter cellular regeneration could revolutionize human medicine if properly understood. Of course, the reverse is also true. Human medical advances have applications for your kind that you've never considered. Like what? Diana asked. Silver toxicity, for instance. Dr. Chen moved to a cabinet and removed a vial of clear liquid. This compound can neutralize silver particles in the bloodstream if administered quickly after exposure. It saved the lives of several hunters who encountered the Silver Dawn's weaponry. Diana stared at the vial with newfound appreciation. Such a treatment could change everything for their kind, whose greatest vulnerability had always been silver. Knowledge exchange, Marcus said, his gaze intent on Diana. This is the foundation of what I envision, humans and shifters sharing expertise rather than existing in fearful isolation. It's not that simple, Dr. Chen cautioned. "I'm an anomaly, a human who witnessed something impossible and chose curiosity over fear. Most would react differently." "Which is why we start small," Marcus acknowledged, "with individuals like yourself, scientists, doctors, others whose training might overcome initial fear response." "And this is where I come in," Diana realized aloud. "To identify potential human contacts, to serve as the bridge." "Precisely," Marcus confirmed. "Your military background gives you credibility in human circles. Your understanding of both worlds makes you uniquely qualified." Dr. Chen studied Diana with clinical interest. "He's been planning this for years, waiting for the right person to spearhead the initiative." Diana glanced at Marcus, surprised. "Years?" A shadow passed across his face. "The Silver Dawn grows stronger each year, their weapons more sophisticated. Without allies, our kind faces a bleak future." The gravity of her responsibility settled over Diana like a physical weight. This wasn't merely a diplomatic position. It was potentially the key to their species' survival. "I've prepared comprehensive files on potential human contacts," Dr. Chen said, crossing to a locked cabinet. She removed a stack of folders and handed them to Diana. "Scientists who've published theories that suggest openness to non-human intelligence, military officials who've encountered unexplained phenomena, medical researchers exploring regenerative medicine." Diana accepted the folders, already mentally cataloging approaches for each category of potential ally. "These individuals must be approached with extreme care," Marcus warned. "The wrong person could expose us to the world before we're prepared for the consequences." "Or worse, alert the Silver Dawn to our initiative," Diana added, thinking through the security implications. Dr. Chen nodded approvingly. "She thinks like a strategist. Good choice, Marcus." For the next several hours, they reviewed the files together, discussing approaches and contingencies. The sun had begun to set when Marcus finally stood, signaling an end to the session. "Enough for today," he said. "Diana needs time to process the information and rest before tomorrow's formal council meeting." Dr. Chen walked them to the door. As Diana stepped outside, the doctor held her back momentarily. "A word of advice," she said quietly. "Marcus sees the best possible future. Humans and shifters in harmonious coexistence. It's a beautiful vision. But remember that between our current reality and that ideal lies a dangerous transition period, a time when fear will drive both sides toward conflict." Diana nodded, appreciating the woman's pragmatism. "I understand." "I hope you do," Dr. Chen replied, her expression grave. "Because the success or failure of this initiative may very well rest on your shoulders." As they walked back through the settlement, twilight deepening around them, Diana felt the weight of her new responsibility pressing down. So much depended on choices she would make in the coming months: the safety of her people, the possibility of a new relationship with humanity, Marcus's vision for their future. "You're quiet," Marcus observed as they approached the eastern residence. "Processing," Diana admitted. "The scope of what you're attempting is daunting." He stopped walking, turning to face her fully. In the fading light, his features were cast in shadow, but his eyes caught the last rays of sun, gleaming with intensity. "If anyone can help bridge this divide, it's you," he said with quiet certainty. "Your military experience, your healing knowledge, your ability to see beyond our traditions without rejecting our nature, these qualities make you ideal for this role." His confidence was both flattering and terrifying. "And if I fail?" "Then we try another approach," he said simply. "Persistence is key to survival. Our kind has endured centuries of persecution because we adapt. We find new paths when old ones are blocked." They resumed walking, reaching Diana's new home as the first stars appeared in the darkening sky. "Council meeting begins at 9 tomorrow," Marcus said. "Tonight, rest. Adjust to your new surroundings." Diana nodded, suddenly aware of the exhaustion pulling at her limbs. The emotional and physical demands of the past few days had taken their toll. As Marcus turned to leave, Diana called after him. "Why me? Truly, There must be others with military experience, with diplomatic skills. He paused, considering his words carefully. Because from our first conversation, you questioned what others accepted without thought, because you see possibilities where others see only threats. His eyes met hers, intense and sincere. And because you understand loss without being defined by it. Before she could respond, he disappeared into the gathering darkness, leaving Diana alone with his words echoing in her mind. Inside her new home, Diana unpacked the folders Dr. Chen had given her, spreading their contents across the desk in her study. Photographs, academic articles, military records, medical research papers, a carefully curated collection of humans who might, under the right circumstances, become allies. As she organized the materials, a pattern emerged. Many of the potential contacts had experienced trauma or loss that placed them at the margins of human society, brilliant minds whose unconventional theories had cost them professional standing, soldiers whose unexplained encounters had been dismissed as combat stress, doctors whose experimental approaches defied conventional wisdom. People like her, existing between worlds, neither fully rejected nor fully embraced. A sharp knock at her door interrupted Diana's thoughts. She opened it to find Catherine Reed standing on her porch, her expression unreadable in the dim light. "May I come in?" Surprised but wary, Diana stepped aside, gesturing for Catherine to enter. The younger woman glided in, her gaze sweeping the interior with barely concealed envy. "The Eastern residence," she commented. "Quite an honor for a new council member." "What can I do for you, Catherine?" Diana asked directly, disinclined toward social pretense after the day's revelations. Catherine turned to face her, all pretense of friendliness vanishing. "I want to know what game you're playing." "Excuse me?" "With Marcus," Catherine clarified, her voice sharp. "This special position, these private meetings, the preferential treatment. What hold do you have over our alpha?" Diana stiffened. "I have no hold over anyone. I earned my position through the trials, just as you did." "Please," Catherine scoffed. "We both know there's more to it. No one rises from pack outcast to Alpha's favorite overnight without arrangements." The insinuation hung in the air, ugly and explicit. Diana felt heat rise in her cheeks, anger, not embarrassment. "Your accusation isn't just insulting to me," she said, keeping her voice level with effort. "It disrespects Marcus and the entire council who selected us both." Catherine stepped closer, her perfect features contorted with suspicion. "My husband says Marcus has been tracking your military career for years, that he requested your service records as soon as he became Alpha. Why would he take such interest in a damaged soldier from the outer territories?" This revelation caught Diana off guard. Had Marcus truly been watching her that long? If so, why? "Whatever relationship exists between Marcus and me is professional," Diana stated firmly. "We share a vision for how our pack might adapt to changing threats." "A convenient explanation," Catherine retorted. "But it doesn't account for the way he looks at you, or how he engineered this entire council to bring you into his inner circle." "You're imagining conspiracies where none exist," Diana said, moving toward the door. "Now, if you'll excuse me, it's been a long day." Catherine didn't budge. "Victor says Marcus has always had dangerous ideas about humans, that his time among them corrupted his thinking. Is that what connects you? Shared sympathy for our enemies?" The question carried ominous undertones that went beyond personal jealousy. This sounded like organized opposition, not mere rivalry. "Humans aren't uniformly our enemies," Diana replied carefully. "Some could become valuable allies against threats like the Silver Dawn." Catherine's eyes widened slightly. "So it's true. He's planning to expose us to humans." "That's not—" "Victor was right," Catherine interrupted, backing toward the door. "This is worse than we feared." Diana stepped forward, alarmed by the implications. "Catherine, you're misunderstanding." "Am I?" Catherine's hand found the doorknob. "Or are you the one being manipulated, Diana? Ask yourself why Marcus really brought you here, what purpose you truly serve in his grand design." Before Diana could respond, Catherine slipped out into the night, leaving behind questions that multiplied like shadows in Diana's mind. Sleep eluded Diana that night. Catherine's accusations and insinuations swirled through her mind like autumn leaves caught in a whirlwind. Could Marcus truly have been monitoring her military career? If so, to what purpose? Was she merely a convenient tool in some larger scheme? Or worse, a pawn in pack politics she didn't fully understand? Dawn found her still at her desk, the files Dr. Chen had provided spread before her, notes scribbled in margins. The strategic part of Diana's mind had taken over during the sleepless hours, analyzing potential approaches to human contacts while simultaneously assessing the political dynamics within the pack. Diana rose stiffly and moved to the bathroom, splashing cold water on her face. The mirror reflected eyes rimmed with exhaustion, but clear with purpose. Whatever Marcus's true motivations, the initiative itself remained vital. Human Shifter Alliance could save countless lives on both sides if properly executed. She dressed in formal attire for the council meeting: black trousers, a navy blouse, and a fitted jacket that complemented her slender frame while allowing freedom of movement if needed. The pendant gleamed at her throat, a reminder of her mother's final wisdom. This will remind you of your worth when others forget. When Diana arrived at the Great Hall, the other council members were already gathering around an oval table positioned at the chamber's center. Catherine pointedly avoided her gaze, engaged in animated conversation with Sarah Edwards. Marcus sat at the head of the table, reviewing documents with Beta James. Diana took the seat designated for her, noticing how the arrangement placed her directly to Marcus's right, a position of honor that would not go unnoticed by the others. Catherine's eyes narrowed briefly before she composed her features into a diplomatic mask. "Now that we're all present," Marcus began without preamble, "let's commence the first official meeting of the Strategic Council." For the next 2 hours, they discussed immediate security concerns: increased Silver Dawn activity near their northern border, a territorial dispute with the mountain pack to the west, supply shortages affecting the southernmost settlements. Diana listened intently, offering observations when appropriate, but mostly absorbing the complex interplay of pack politics. As the meeting progressed, she observed the subtle dynamics between council members. Catherine and Valerie frequently allied on traditionalist positions, while Sarah advocated for more progressive approaches. Lydia focused primarily on security matters, her military expertise evident in her strategic thinking. Marcus moderated with remarkable skill, drawing out each member's strengths while maintaining clear direction. His leadership style impressed Diana: firm yet receptive, authoritative without being authoritarian. "Our final agenda item," Marcus announced, "concerns our approach to the human settlements within 50 miles of our territory. Diana, would you share your initial assessment?" All eyes turned to her. Diana opened the folder containing her overnight analysis. "The 3 nearest human settlements present distinct opportunities and challenges," she began confidently. Rivercrest, the scientific research facility 15 miles east, employs 37 researchers focused on wildlife biology and forest ecology. Their isolation and scientific mindset make them potential initial contacts. She continued methodically, outlining the small town of Pinehaven 20 miles south and the Military Veterans Rehabilitation Center 30 miles north. For each location, she presented potential allies, security concerns, and proposed approaches. "My recommendation," Diana concluded, "is to begin with Dr. Amelia Winters at Rivercrest. Her published papers on mammalian adaptation suggest an open-minded approach to evolutionary anomalies. As a respected scientist with minimal family connections, she represents lower exposure risk than other potential contacts." Silence followed her presentation. Diana waited, maintaining composed eye contact with each council member in turn. "An impressively thorough analysis," Sarah commented finally, "especially considering you've had the files for less than a day." "I have concerns," Catherine interjected before Diana could respond. "Any contact with humans represents unprecedented risk to our pack. For generations, we've survived through isolation and secrecy. This approach abandons proven safety for dangerous speculation. A valid perspective, Marcus acknowledged. However, isolation becomes increasingly untenable as human technology advances. Satellite imaging, thermal detection, environmental DNA analysis, these tools make discovery inevitable. The question isn't whether humans will find us, but how we manage that discovery. Controlled revelation to selected individuals allows us to shape the narrative, Diana added. Rather than being exposed as monsters, we can establish ourselves as sentient beings with our own society and rights. Pretty words, Catherine said dismissively, but they ignore basic human nature. Humans fear what's different. They destroy what they fear. Some do, Diana conceded. Others respond with curiosity rather than fear. Dr. Chen is living proof of that potential. Murmurs rippled through the council. While all members knew of Dr. Chen's existence, the implications of her presence remained controversial. One human accepting our nature doesn't justify risking our entire species, Valerie argued. The consequences of exposure could be catastrophic. As could the consequences of continued isolation, Diana countered. The Silver Dawn grows more sophisticated each year. Without human allies who understand our true nature, we face their hatred without defense. The debate continued, positions hardening along predictable lines. Throughout, Marcus listened attentively, allowing the discourse to unfold without imposing his authority. "We've heard compelling arguments on both sides," he said finally. "This decision carries too much weight for hasty judgment. Each council member will review Diana's full analysis and prepare a formal position by tomorrow's meeting. For today, we stand adjourned." As the council members gathered their materials, Marcus turned to Diana. "Walk with me." They left the Great Hall together, drawing curious glances from pack members they passed. Marcus led the way to a garden behind the main building, a serene space with stone benches surrounding a frozen pond. "You handled that well," he said once they were alone. "Presented your position without defensiveness, despite clear opposition." "Catherine has organized resistance already," Diana observed. "Not just personal rivalry, something more coordinated." Marcus nodded, unsurprised. "Victor Reed has been gathering supporters for months, those who believe our traditions should remain unchanged regardless of external threats." "They see you as dangerous," Diana said, recalling Catherine's words. "A corrupting influence because of your time among humans." "They're not entirely wrong," he admitted. "I returned changed, unwilling to accept limitations that once seemed immutable." His gaze turned distant. "When you've seen another species accomplish what yours believes impossible, it challenges everything you thought you knew." Diana studied his profile, noting the tension in his jaw. "There's more to this initiative than you've shared with the council." It wasn't a question. Marcus met her eyes, a decision visibly forming behind his gaze. "Come with me," he said, rising. "There's something you need to see." They traveled north through the forest, moving swiftly in human form along paths visible only to shifter eyes. The journey took nearly an hour, leading them to the base of a steep ridge that marked the northern boundary of pack territory. Marcus approached what appeared to be a solid rock face covered with winter moss and ice. He pressed his palm against a specific formation, and a section of stone slid silently aside, revealing a hidden entrance. "Few know of this place," he said, his voice low. "What you're about to see is known only to myself, James, and Dr. Chen." Diana followed him into the darkness, her enhanced vision adjusting quickly as they descended a narrow tunnel carved into the mountain. The passage opened into a large chamber, illuminated by recessed lighting, a startling contrast to the primitive exterior. She gasped as she took in the space. One wall was covered with advanced monitoring equipment, satellite feeds, thermal imaging displays, communication systems. Another held medical equipment that rivaled any human hospital. Glass cases contained weapons she recognized from her military service, alongside others she'd never seen before. "What is this place?" Diana whispered, struggling to reconcile the high-tech facility with everything she knew about pack resources. "We call it the Sanctuary," Marcus replied, moving to the central console. "Part research facility, part strategic command center, part emergency fallback position if Central Territory is compromised." How? When? Diana struggled to formulate questions as she absorbed the implications of what she was seeing. Construction began under my father's leadership, accelerated when I became Alpha. Marcus activated a display, bringing up satellite imagery of the surrounding 50 miles. The technology comes from various sources, some purchased through shell companies, some developed by Dr. Chen, some acquired from Silver Dawn operations we've neutralized. Diana moved closer to the display, recognizing their territory and the human settlements she'd analyzed. Does the Council know this exists? No, Marcus said simply, and they can't. Not yet. The significance of his trust in showing her this place wasn't lost on Diana. Why me? Why now? Marcus's expression grew grave. Because the situation is more dire than I've publicly acknowledged. He pressed another button, and the display shifted to show thermal imaging of what appeared to be a military-style compound 20 miles beyond their northern border. Silver Dawn? Diana asked. Their newest base of operations, Marcus confirmed. Established 6 months ago, staffed by approximately 40 operatives with military training equipped with weapons specifically designed to target our kind. Diana studied the images with a soldier's eye, noting defensive positions, patrol patterns, access routes. They're preparing for something major. This isn't a simple hunting party, it's an invasion force. Exactly. Marcus's voice hardened. Our intelligence suggests they're planning a coordinated attack on all known shifter territories within the year. They've developed new technology, a chemical compound that forces shifting, exposing our kind even in human form. The implications sent ice through Diana's veins. Such a weapon would render centuries of careful concealment useless. Their people could be identified and eliminated without chance of defense. The human alliance isn't just about long-term coexistence, Diana realized. It's immediate survival. Yes. Marcus met her gaze directly. Without human allies who understand our true nature and can advocate for our rights, the Silver Dawn's narrative becomes the only one. We become monsters to be exterminated. Diana processed this information, tactical assessments forming automatically. The Council needs to know the full threat. They're not ready, Marcus countered. Catherine and her allies would panic, push for immediate aggression. Some would advocate attacking human settlements preemptively, believing it our only defense. Creating exactly the conflict the Silver Dawn wants, Diana concluded, confirming their narrative that we're dangerous predators. Precisely. Marcus moved to another display, bringing up profiles of the human contacts Dr. Chen had identified. We need allies before we can risk open conflict. Humans with influence who understand what's really at stake. Diana's military training kicked in, mind racing through strategic options. We need more intelligence on their operations, their timeline, their weaknesses. Which is where you come in. Marcus turned to face her fully. Your experience in military intelligence makes you uniquely qualified to help us prepare, both diplomatically and tactically. The weight of responsibility settled over Diana like a physical presence. This wasn't merely about cultural exchange or political maneuvering. It was about the survival of their entire species. I understand now, she said quietly. Why you created the Council, why you selected each member. You're building a war cabinet without calling it such. Marcus's expression remained steady. I'm building a survival team. Each member brings skills we'll need. Catherine's political connections among traditionalists, Sarah's educational expertise for the next generation, Valerie's knowledge of neighboring packs, Lydia's combat experience. And me? You bridge worlds, he said simply. Military and civilian, healer and warrior, human experience and wolf instinct. You see possibilities where others see only threats. Diana absorbed his words, recognizing the challenge ahead. Catherine was right about one thing. You've been watching me for years. Marcus didn't deny it. When I returned from my final deployment, I reviewed the records of all pack members with military experience. Your file stood out, not just for your combat record, but for your approach to problems. Your unit commander described you as uniquely capable of maintaining humanity while embracing wolf instincts. And that quality made me valuable to your plans, Diana concluded, unsure whether to feel used or honored. That quality made you essential, Marcus corrected. This isn't about manipulation, Diana. It's about recognizing the right person for the most critical role in our pack's history. His sincerity was evident, but Diana needed more. You could have told me this from the beginning. Why the trials? Why the public selection process? Legitimacy, he answered. Your position had to be earned publicly, recognized by the pack as merit-based rather than my personal appointment. Otherwise, your authority would be undermined at every turn. Diana walked the perimeter of the room, examining the equipment, processing everything she'd learned. The strategic logic was sound, the threat assessment credible. The pieces fit together in a cohesive plan that honored both immediate security needs and long-term ethical considerations. I need you with me in this, Marcus said, his voice unusually vulnerable. Not just as a council member following orders, but as a partner who shares the vision and improves it. Diana turned to face him, decision formed. I'm with you. But we do this as true partners. No more withheld information, no more partial truths. I can't help navigate what I can't fully see. Relief crossed Marcus's features. Agreed. From this moment, complete transparency between us. Starting with the full situation regarding Dr. Chen, Diana pressed, there's more to her story than you've shared. A shadow passed over Marcus's expression. Perceptive as always. He moved to a secure console and entered a complex code. A hidden door slid open, revealing a medical laboratory beyond. Inside, Dr. Chen stood over a microscope. So absorbed in her work, she didn't immediately notice their entrance. When she looked up, her expression shifted from surprise to resignation. You've decided to tell her everything then, she said to Marcus, removing her glasses. She needs to know if she's going to help us succeed, he replied. Dr. Chen sighed, then gestured to a nearby display showing cellular imagery. I suppose I should start by explaining that I'm not exactly a normal human anymore. Diana stepped closer to the screen, studying what appeared to be human cells undergoing transformation. What am I looking at? My own cellular structure, Dr. Chen explained, or rather, its evolution over the past 5 years. Understanding dawned slowly as Diana processed the implications. You're becoming a shifter? Not exactly, Dr. Chen corrected. More like a hybrid. The process began in Afghanistan when I treated Marcus's wounds. His blood entered my system through a cut on my hand, a biological exchange that triggered subtle changes. The transformation isn't complete, Marcus added, nor will it ever be. But it's enough to make Eliza unique, the only known human with partial shifter abilities. Diana struggled to absorb this revelation. What abilities? Enhanced senses, Dr. Chen replied matter-of-factly. Accelerated healing, extended lifespan apparently, but not shifting. That genetic capability remains beyond my hybrid physiology. She's living proof that our species can coexist at the most fundamental level, Marcus said, and the key to developing countermeasures against Silver Dawn weapons. Diana's military mind immediately grasped the tactical advantage. Your biology lets you test their compounds without risk of full exposure. Precisely, Dr. Chen confirmed. I can experience partial effects without triggering a complete shift response. It's allowed us to develop preliminary countermeasures against their chemical agents. But there's more at stake than just defense, Marcus interjected. Eliza's condition suggests possibilities beyond mere coexistence. Controlled biological exchange could create a bridge between our species, not elimination of differences, but shared evolution. The concept was revolutionary, shattering centuries of assumptions about the unbridgeable gap between human and shifter. Diana's mind raced with implications. Medical, ethical, political. Victor and Catherine's faction, they don't know about this? No, Marcus said firmly. And they can't, not yet. The traditionalists would see this as contamination rather than possibility. They'd view Eliza as an abomination rather than a breakthrough. Diana nodded, understanding the caution. So, my mission to establish human contacts, it's not just about finding allies against the Silver Dawn. It's about identifying humans who might accept this possibility, Dr. Chen confirmed. Scientists and medical professionals who could help replicate and study what's happened to me under controlled conditions. The future of both species may depend on it, Marcus added, not merging into one, but evolving together in harmony rather than conflict. The scope of the vision was breathtaking, audacious, yet rooted in demonstrable science. Diana found herself drawn to the possibility despite its risks, the healer in her recognizing the potential benefits for both species. "This changes my approach to potential contacts," she said, mind already adapting strategies. Medical researchers become priority targets, particularly those in genetic adaptation and evolutionary biology. "Exactly," Marcus agreed. "Dr. Winters at Rivercrest remains an ideal first contact, but for more reasons than you initially knew." Diana spent the next hour reviewing Dr. Chen's research, asking pointed questions about the biological mechanisms involved and security protocols surrounding the work. The scientific details were complex, but not impenetrable to someone with her medical background. As they prepared to leave the sanctuary, Diana's mind continued processing implications. "The council meeting tomorrow, how much of this can I reference in my revised assessment?" "Nothing about Dr. Chen's condition or this facility," Marcus replied firmly, "but you can emphasize the accelerated timeline of the Silver Dawn threat. The council needs to understand urgency without knowing all operational details." Diana nodded, recognizing the delicate balance required. "And my approach to Dr. Winters, when do we initiate contact?" "Sooner than originally planned," Marcus said. "I'll arrange for you to visit Rivercrest within the week, ostensibly as a botanical researcher interested in medicinal plants. Dr. Chen has prepared credentials that will withstand scrutiny." They began the journey back to Central Territory, moving swiftly through the winter forest. Diana's mind continued processing everything she'd learned, adjusting her understanding of both present circumstances and future possibilities. "There's one thing I still don't understand," she said as they approached the settlement. "Why did Victor seem to know about your interest in my military record? Catherine mentioned it specifically." Marcus's expression darkened. "That's concerning. Those records were accessed through secure channels, known only to myself and James." Suggesting either James is feeding information to Victor's faction, or they have other sources within my inner circle, Marcus finished. "A troubling possibility either way." They stopped at the edge of the tree line, the lights of Central Territory visible beyond. Night had fallen during their absence, stars emerging in the clear winter sky. "We need to identify the leak," Diana said, military training asserting itself. "Set up controlled information channels, feed different details to different sources, see what emerges in Catherine's knowledge." Marcus studied her with newfound appreciation. "Counterintelligence tactics." "Basic security," she corrected. "If they know about your interest in my service record, what else might they know about your plans?" The question hung between them, its implications troubling. Marcus nodded slowly, acknowledging the concern. "We'll implement security protocols immediately," he agreed, starting with compartmentalized information access. They continued toward the settlement, maintaining professional distance as they entered populated areas. Diana was acutely aware of eyes tracking their movement, noting their return together after hours of absence. "Council meeting at 9 tomorrow," Marcus said formally, as they reached the point where their paths would diverge. "Be prepared to defend your human contact strategy against significant opposition." "Understood, Alpha," Diana replied, matching his professional tone for any observers. As she turned toward the eastern residence, Marcus added in a voice meant only for her enhanced hearing, "And Diana, thank you for your trust. It means more than you know." The sincerity in his voice lingered with her as she entered her home, a counterbalance to the day's unsettling revelations. Diana spent the evening preparing her revised assessment for the council, carefully crafting language that conveyed urgency without revealing classified information. She emphasized the Silver Dawn's technological advances, their increasing coordination, and the inadequacy of traditional isolation as a long-term strategy. As midnight approached, a soft knock interrupted her work. Diana approached the door cautiously, senses alert for potential threat. She relaxed slightly when she recognized Sarah's scent. The older council member entered quietly, her expression troubled. "We need to talk," she said without preamble. "Somewhere secure." Diana led her through the house, checking for listening devices with techniques learned during military service. Finding none, she gestured for Sarah to join her in the study. "Catherine is consolidating support," Sarah began once they were seated. "Not just among council members, but throughout the pack. Victor met with senior warriors this afternoon, speaking of dangerous progressive elements threatening pack traditions." "Their opposition was expected," Diana noted, keeping her expression neutral. "This goes beyond normal political maneuvering," Sarah countered. "They're portraying Marcus as mentally unstable, claiming his time among humans compromised his judgment and loyalty." Diana's concern deepened. Such accusations struck at the foundation of pack leadership. What evidence do they offer? Apparently, Victor has documentation showing Marcus maintained contact with human military personnel after his return, correspondence that allegedly discusses integration possibilities between species. The specificity sent alarm through Diana. This wasn't mere rumor, but targeted information warfare based on partial truths. How widespread is this narrative? "Growing," Sarah admitted. "Catherine has been particularly effective among younger females, suggesting Marcus intends to offer them to humans as breeding stock to create hybrids." Diana struggled to contain her reaction to such an absurd perversion of Marcus's actual vision. "That's complete fabrication." "Of course it is," Sarah agreed. "But fear is a powerful motivator, and many pack members have never encountered humans except as threats. The narrative plays to existing prejudices." Diana considered the implications, her tactical mind assessing counter-strategies. "Why are you telling me this?" Sarah's gaze was direct. "Because you've become central to their conspiracy theory. They're portraying you as Marcus's primary agent for this supposed integration program, chosen specifically for your human sympathies during military service." The conversation with Catherine suddenly made more sense. Not just jealousy, but reconnaissance, testing Diana's reactions to confirm their narrative. "I need to know where you truly stand," Sarah continued. "Not what you say in council meetings, but what you believe about our future." Diana weighed her response carefully. Sarah had always shown wisdom and progressive thinking, but complete disclosure of Marcus's plans remained too risky. "I believe isolation is a failed strategy," she said finally. "I believe the Silver Dawn represents an existential threat that we cannot face alone. And I believe selective alliance with sympathetic humans offers our best chance of long-term survival." Sarah studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "That's what I needed to hear." She leaned forward, voice dropping. "I have contacts among the southern settlements, progressives who share these views, but lack voice in pack governance. They could provide crucial support if conflict escalates." "You think it might come to that?" Diana asked, though she already knew the answer. "Victor is positioning for a challenge," Sarah confirmed grimly. "Not directly. He lacks the strength to face Marcus himself, but he's grooming support for a formal leadership review, claiming alpha instability endangers the pack." Such challenges were rare, but established in pack law, a mechanism to remove leaders deemed unfit through age, injury, or mental decline. The implications were chilling. "When?" "The next full moon," Sarah replied. 3 weeks from now. They're moving quickly to prevent Marcus's initiatives from gaining traction." Diana absorbed this information, adjusting timelines in her mind. 3 weeks left little margin for establishing human contacts or developing countermeasures against Silver Dawn weapons. "We need to accelerate our plans," she murmured, almost to herself. Sarah raised an eyebrow. "What plans specifically?" Diana caught herself, recognizing she'd revealed too much. "Council initiatives, building support for the human contact approach." If Sarah noticed the deflection, she gave no sign. "I should go before my absence is noted. Catherine has eyes everywhere these days." At the door, she paused. Be careful, Diana. Victor sees you as the key to undermining Marcus. Remove the agent, destroy the plan. That's his thinking. The warning lingered in the air long after Sarah departed. Diana secured the house and returned to her desk, mind racing with implications. The timeline had compressed dangerously. Political maneuvering now threatened not just Marcus's leadership, but the Pact's very survival against external threats. Diana made a decision. Moving to the secure phone Marcus had provided, she composed a message using military encryption protocols they'd established. Accelerate Rivercrest contact. Internal opposition organizing faster than anticipated. Timeline compromised. The reply came minutes later. Acknowledged. Credentials prepared. You leave at dawn. Dawn broke with steely gray light filtering through low clouds. Diana packed efficiently, selecting clothing suitable for her cover as a botanical researcher, practical, unremarkable, designed not to draw attention. Into a separate compartment went her military-grade tactical knife, a satellite phone with encryption capabilities, and the credentials Dr. Chen had prepared. A soft knock at her door revealed Marcus, his expression tense in the early morning light. "The council meeting has been moved up," he said without preamble. "Catherine requested an emergency session to address security concerns. It begins in 30 minutes. Diana's jaw tightened. They're moving faster than anticipated. Much faster. Marcus handed her a small device resembling a watch. Tracking beacon, encrypted communications, emergency signal if you encounter trouble at Rivercrest. Dr. Chen programmed it specifically for your mission." Diana slipped it onto her wrist, noting how it blended with her cover identity's practical appearance. "What about the council meeting?" "James will represent your position," Marcus replied. "Your absence will be explained as a research expedition for medicinal herbs, technically true, if incomplete." "Catherine won't accept that explanation." "No, but she can't prevent it without revealing the extent of her opposition." Marcus's gaze was steady. "Your departure must happen now before they can organize interference." Diana nodded, grabbing her pack. "Transport?" "Vehicle waiting at the eastern boundary. One of our trusted handlers will drive you to the edge of Rivercrest property." They moved swiftly through the settlement, maintaining casual pace to avoid drawing attention. The earliest risers were just beginning their morning routines, paying little mind to what appeared to be a simple walking meeting between Alpha and council member. At the eastern boundary, a nondescript SUV waited, engine running. The driver, a middle-aged male Diana recognized as one of Marcus's security detail, nodded respectfully. "This is where we separate," Marcus said. "The driver has your complete mission parameters." Diana secured her pack in the vehicle, then turned to face Marcus. Protocol dictated a formal farewell between Alpha and council member. Instead, Marcus stepped forward and clasped her hand in both of his. "Trust your instincts," he said quietly. "They've kept you alive this long." The unexpected physical contact sent warmth through Diana's arm. "I'll establish contact and return as quickly as possible." "Be careful," he added, voice dropping further. "This isn't just about the mission anymore. Catherine and Victor have made this personal." Diana recognized the concern in his eyes. "I've survived worse than pack politics." "Perhaps," Marcus acknowledged, "but few have survived Silver Dawn operations. Intelligence suggests they have informants in Rivercrest. Watch for unusual interest in your activities." She nodded, committing the warning to memory. As she moved to enter the vehicle, Marcus spoke again. "Diana," he said, uncharacteristic hesitation in his voice, "there's something else you should know before you go." She paused, reading the conflict in his expression. "When you return," he continued, "I intend to formally request a bonding ceremony between us." The statement hit Diana with physical force. Bonding ceremonies were the pack equivalent of marriage, permanent sacred unions that went beyond political alliance. "Is this a strategic decision?" she managed, struggling to process his words. "It began that way," he admitted with unexpected candor, "uniting our positions against opposition, strengthening the progressive faction through formal alliance. But it's become more." Diana studied his face, reading the sincerity there. "This isn't the moment for such a discussion." "No," he agreed. But I wanted you to have all information before your mission. Complete transparency, as promised." The driver cleared his throat discreetly, indicating time pressure. Diana nodded, her mind still reeling from Marcus's revelation. "We'll discuss this when I return," she said finally, unable to offer more in the moment. Marcus stepped back, resuming his formal alpha stance. "Safe journey, council member." Diana climbed into the vehicle, maintaining composure until they cleared the settlement boundary. Only then did she release the breath she'd been holding, her mind struggling to compartmentalize Marcus's declaration. The drive to Rivercrest took nearly 3 hours, following winding forest roads that gradually transitioned to more maintained thoroughfares. Diana used the time to review Dr. Winter's research papers again, familiarizing herself with the scientist's particular interests and theoretical frameworks. Amelia Winters specialized in adaptational biology, specifically how various species adjusted to environmental pressures through non-evolutionary mechanisms. Her most recent work explored epigenetic responses to climate change among forest mammals, research that inadvertently bordered on shifter biological realities. The driver maintained silence throughout the journey, respecting Diana's concentration. Only when they approached the final turnoff to Rivercrest did he speak. "I'll wait at the designated extraction point for 24 hours, he said, pulling onto a secluded forest road. "If you're not back by then, emergency protocols activate." Diana nodded, checking her equipment one final time. "Any activity reports from perimeter security?" "Nothing unusual," the driver confirmed. "Standard research activity, supply deliveries yesterday, no unexpected visitors." The vehicle stopped at a hiking trailhead approximately 2 miles from the research facility. From here, Diana would approach on foot, a botanical researcher exploring the winter forest for dormant medicinal species. "Good hunting," the driver said as she exited, the traditional pack farewell for those embarking on important missions. Diana adjusted her pack and set off along the trail, her pace that of an experienced hiker rather than a military operator. The forest here was different from pack territory: younger trees, more evidence of human management, occasional signage marking protected species. As the research facility came into view, Diana activated her cover identity fully, adopting the slightly distracted demeanor of an academic absorbed in scientific observation. She photographed plants, collected small samples, and made notes in a field journal, all legitimate activities that established her visible persona while allowing her to survey the facility's security measures. Rivercrest consisted of several modern buildings arranged in a loose circle, with a central courtyard containing winter-dormant experimental gardens. Security appeared minimal: a single checkpoint at the main entrance, basic ID verification, cameras covering primary access points, but leaving blind spots Diana immediately identified. She approached the main gate directly, presenting the credentials Dr. Chen had prepared. The security guard examined her ID with perfunctory attention. "Dr. Diana Silver," he read. "University Botanical Research Program?" "Visiting researcher," Diana confirmed, offering a friendly but professional smile. "I have an appointment with Dr. Winters regarding potential collaboration on forest adaptation projects." The guard checked a tablet. "Yes, you're on the schedule. Building C, 2nd floor. Sign in at reception first." "Thank you," Diana replied, accepting the visitor badge he offered. Inside, the facility had the sterile efficiency of most research institutions: polished floors, directional signage, the faint smell of cleaning solutions, masking laboratory chemicals. Diana navigated to reception, where a young woman processed her visitor documentation and made a call to Dr. Winter's office. "She'll be down in a moment," the receptionist informed her. "Please have a seat." Diana used the waiting time to survey the interior security: badge readers on laboratory doors, cameras in main hallways, but not in side corridors or stairwells. Standard institutional protection rather than military-grade security. If Dr. Winters proved receptive, extraction would be straightforward. "Dr. Silver?" Diana turned to find a woman in her early 40s approaching, tall, with auburn hair pulled into a practical bun, glasses perched on a narrow nose, and intelligent eyes that studied Diana with immediate scientific interest. "Dr. Winters," Diana acknowledged, rising to shake her hand. Thank you for agreeing to meet on such short notice. Your proposal regarding adaptive responses in medicinal plants was intriguing, Dr. Winters replied, leading her toward an elevator. Particularly the suggestion about stress-induced chemical changes. It aligns with some of my current work. They entered the elevator alone, Dr. Winters scanning her badge to access the research floors. As the doors closed, Diana made her first assessment. The scientist carried herself with the confidence of someone secure in her professional standing, but showed subtle signs of isolation, minimal personal touches to her appearance, a slight hunger in her expression when engaging with a new intellectual contact. Perfect. Dr. Winters' office reflected the same pattern, immaculately organized but impersonal. No family photos, minimal decorative elements, walls dominated by scientific charts and academic certificates. Your work on epigenetic responses in forest mammals is remarkable, Diana began as they settled into chairs, particularly the paper on rapid adaptation to environmental stressors. Dr. Winters' expression brightened at the specific reference. You've read my research thoroughly. It relates directly to my interests, Diana replied truthfully. How organisms adapt without conventional evolutionary timelines. The conversation flowed naturally into scientific territory, plant adaptations, stress responses, chemical defense mechanisms. Diana gradually guided the discussion toward theoretical possibilities, testing the waters for receptiveness to more radical concepts. What if, she suggested after establishing intellectual rapport, adaptation could occur not just within generations, but within a single organism's lifespan? Dramatic physiological changes in response to specific triggers? Dr. Winters leaned forward, intrigued rather than dismissive. You're describing something beyond normal plasticity, almost like metamorphosis in adult organisms? Precisely, Diana confirmed. Controlled transformation at the cellular level. Theoretically fascinating, Dr. Winters admitted. But we've observed nothing like that in mammals. The energy requirements alone would be prohibitive. Diana allowed a thoughtful pause. What if those energy barriers could be overcome? What would the implications be? Revolutionary, Dr. Winters said without hesitation. It would challenge our entire understanding of biological limitations. She studied Diana with increasing curiosity. This isn't just about plants, is it? The moment had arrived, the critical decision point of the mission. Diana assessed Dr. Winters' body language, expression, the subtle indicators of scientific curiosity overcoming institutional caution, the risk calculation balanced on a knife's edge. Dr. Winters, Diana said carefully, what I'm about to share with you might seem impossible. I ask only that you listen with the open mind of a scientist before reaching conclusions. The researcher's expression grew serious. You have my attention. Diana removed a small device from her pocket, a secure drive containing carefully selected data from Dr. Chen's research. This contains cellular imagery and analysis that will challenge everything you believe about mammalian adaptation. I'd like you to review it privately, under secure conditions. Dr. Winters accepted the drive cautiously. What exactly am I looking at? Evidence of controlled cellular transformation in mammals, Diana answered, maintaining steady eye contact, including humans. Skepticism crossed the scientist's features, but professional curiosity prevented immediate dismissal. That's an extraordinary claim, Dr. Silver. Which requires extraordinary evidence, Diana acknowledged. That drive contains preliminary proof. If you find it compelling, there's more where it came from. Dr. Winters weighed the drive in her hand, scientific interest visibly battling with professional caution. Who are you really? This doesn't align with botanical research. Someone who recognizes your unique capacity to understand what's on that drive, Diana replied. Someone offering you the research opportunity of a lifetime. The scientist's eyes narrowed. Are we talking about classified government research? Because I don't have security clearance for— Nothing governmental, Diana interrupted. Something more independent. A discovery that could bridge multiple species' futures if approached with the right scientific framework. Dr. Winters studied her for a long moment, then nodded decisively. Let's move to my private lab. If this is what you're suggesting, I need proper equipment to evaluate it." They descended to a lower-level laboratory that required additional security clearance. Once inside, Dr. Winters secured the door and activated a sophisticated microscope system connected to a high-resolution display. "This equipment is off the main facility network," she explained, inserting the drive. "My personal research space." The first images appeared on screen. Dr. Chen's cellular transformation sequence, carefully edited to remove identifying features while preserving the scientific significance. Dr. Winters' breath caught as she studied the display. "This can't be," she whispered, adjusting magnification settings. "The cellular reorganization is impossible. The energy requirements alone would—" She fell silent, absorption complete as she cycled through the data files, her scientific mind visibly processing and analyzing. Diana remained quiet, allowing the evidence to speak for itself. After 15 minutes of intensive review, Dr. Winters looked up, her expression transformed by intellectual wonder and scientific hunger. "This is real, isn't it? Not theoretical, not hypothetical. You've actually observed this transformation." Diana nodded once, confirming without elaboration. "Where?" Dr. Winters demanded. "What species? Under what conditions? The implications are staggering for medicine alone: tissue regeneration, cancer treatment, organ replacement." "All possibilities," Diana acknowledged, "along with others you haven't considered yet." The scientist's analytical mind connected dots with remarkable speed. "The energy question remains. No conventional metabolic process could fuel this level of cellular reconstruction." "Which suggests unconventional metabolic processes exist," Diana replied. "Ones science hasn't fully documented or understood." Dr. Winters' eyes widened with sudden comprehension. "You're not here to discuss this theoretically. You have access to organisms capable of this transformation." The moment of truth had arrived. Diana took a measured breath, assessing one final time before committing. "Dr. Winters, what I'm about to tell you will sound impossible. I ask only that you consider the evidence you've already seen before dismissing my words." The scientist nodded, her professional demeanor now fully engaged. "I represent a community of individuals who can transform between human and wolf form," Diana stated simply. "What you would call werewolves, what we call shifters." She expected immediate skepticism, perhaps even alarm. Instead, Dr. Winters glanced back at the cellular imagery, her scientific mind already connecting evidence to claim. "The energy question," she murmured. "Of course, a biological mechanism we don't understand yet." She looked up sharply. "You're one of them." It wasn't a question. Diana nodded once, maintaining steady eye contact. "May I—" Dr. Winters hesitated, then continued with professional directness. "May I see evidence of this transformation, not just cellular imagery, but the actual process?" "Not here," Diana replied. "Too exposed, too many variables. But if you're willing to come with me to a secure location, yes." "When?" "Now," Diana said. "Today. This conversation cannot safely continue here." Dr. Winters hesitated, scientific caution reasserting itself. "You're asking me to leave my facility with someone claiming to be a shifter, based on cellular imagery that could be fabricated." Diana considered her options. Full transformation here carried unacceptable risks, but she needed to provide sufficient proof to secure Dr. Winters' cooperation. "A demonstration, then," she decided. "Partial, but unmistakable." She held out her hand, palm up, focusing her energy on controlled, limited shifting. Her fingernails thickened, elongated, transformed into claws before the scientist's widening eyes. The skin of her hand darkened slightly, fur beginning to emerge at the wrist before Diana reversed the process, returning to fully human appearance. Dr. Winters stood frozen, scientific skepticism battling with observed reality. "That's impossible." "Yet you saw it," Diana countered. "And your instruments could verify it wasn't illusion or trickery." The scientist moved to a cabinet, retrieving a handheld scanner. "May I?" Diana extended her hand again, allowing the device to pass over it. Readings appeared on Dr. Winter's tablet, normal human biological signatures. "Again," the scientist requested, "the transformation." Diana complied, focusing on the partial shift once more. The scanner passed over her transforming hand, recording data in real time. Dr. Winters stared at the readings, her breath catching. "The cellular energy output is extraordinary," she whispered. "And the structural proteins are reconfiguring at the molecular level. This is beyond anything in scientific literature." She set down the scanner, meeting Diana's eyes with new understanding. "What do you want from me exactly?" "Your expertise," Diana answered, "your open mind, and your help with a situation that threatens both our species." Dr. Winters raised an eyebrow. "Both our species? You speak as though shifters are entirely separate from humans." "Biologically related but distinct," Diana clarified. "Much like wolves and dogs. Common ancestry but different evolutionary paths." The scientist processed this, her analytical mind visibly working through implications. "And this threat?" "A group called the Silver Dawn," Diana explained. "They hunt our kind using increasingly sophisticated biological weapons. Weapons that could have devastating consequences for humans as well, if deployed widely." Dr. Winters frowned. "What kind of weapons?" "Chemical compounds that force shifting, exposing our kind even in human form. But the molecular mechanisms involved could trigger catastrophic cellular disruption in ordinary humans as well. Like forcing partial transformation in beings incapable of completing it," Dr. Winters concluded, her scientific mind grasping implications immediately. "Cell death on a massive scale." "Exactly," Diana confirmed. "We need your help to understand these compounds and develop countermeasures." The scientist's expression shifted from scientific curiosity to moral concern. "This sounds like biological warfare." "It is," Diana agreed grimly. "Against a species most humans don't know exists, which makes it all the more dangerous. No public oversight, no ethical constraints, no accountability." Dr. Winters fell silent, processing everything she'd learned. Diana allowed her the time, recognizing the enormity of the paradigm shift the scientist was navigating. "If I agree to help," Dr. Winters said finally, "what exactly would that entail? Relocating? Giving up my research here?" "Initially, consulting on specific biochemical questions," Diana explained, "meeting our research team, reviewing existing data, eventually, if you choose, a more integrated role in our scientific division." "Your research team," Dr. Winters repeated. "You have shifter scientists studying these issues?" "We have both shifter and human researchers," Diana replied, offering the critical detail. "Working collaboratively." This caught the scientist's full attention. "Humans already know about your existence?" "A carefully selected few," Diana confirmed, "including a brilliant research physician who leads our scientific division." Dr. Winters nodded slowly, decision visibly forming. "I need to secure my research here first. Transfer ongoing experiments to colleagues. Establish cover for temporary absence." "How long?" 2 hours, the scientist replied decisively. "I'll need to bring essential equipment and personal data archives." Diana assessed the timeline against security risks. "Acceptable. I'll wait in the visitors' lounge to avoid drawing attention. We leave separately and rendezvous at the North Hiking Trail." Dr. Winters agreed with a professional nod, already moving to secure the laboratory. 2 hours, don't be late." "Don't be—" Diana returned to the public areas of the facility, maintaining her botanical researcher cover while monitoring facility activities. Nothing seemed amiss, normal research operations continuing around her as she pretended to review field notes and photographs. Her awareness remained heightened, senses alert for any indication of Silver Dawn presence. The mission was proceeding more smoothly than anticipated, which itself warranted caution. In Diana's experience, uncomplicated operations often concealed overlooked threats. 90 minutes into her wait, Diana's instincts flared. The facility's front entrance opened, admitting 3 men whose bearing immediately registered as military despite their civilian clothing. Their scanning gaze, positioning relative to exits, and subtle communication patterns marked them as a tactical team rather than researchers or visitors. Diana maintained her casual posture while activating the emergency beacon on her watch, one pulse to signal potential threat, not yet confirmed. The men separated, one remaining near the entrance, while 2 proceeded deeper into the facility. Time to accelerate. Diana gathered her materials unhurriedly and approached the reception desk. "Is there a restroom I could use before leaving?" she asked pleasantly. The receptionist directed her down a side corridor, away from where the unknown men had gone. Diana followed the directions, but continued past the restroom, using the service corridor to navigate toward Dr. Winter's laboratory. She found the scientist already preparing to leave, equipment packed into 2 large cases. "We need to move now," Diana said without preamble. "Security situation has changed." Dr. Winters looked up sharply. "What happened?" "Potential hostile entry. 3 operators with military bearing just arrived." The scientist paled slightly, but maintained composure. "Silver Dawn?" "Unknown, but we proceed as if confirmed," Diana replied, military training asserting itself. "Alternative exit route?" "Loading dock," Dr. Winters decided immediately. "Through the secondary lab. My access card works." They moved efficiently, the scientist leading the way through less traveled corridors, while Diana maintained rear security. The loading dock provided covered access to the facility's service road, which connected to the forest trail system half a mile distant. "My car is in the main lot," Dr. Winters said as they secured the door behind them. "Too exposed," Diana countered. "We proceed on foot to extraction point." They moved into the forest cover, Diana setting a pace the scientist could maintain while carrying her essential equipment. The extraction point lay 2 miles north, challenging terrain but manageable with proper guidance. They had covered approximately half the distance when Diana detected pursuit, the faint sound of trained movement through forest, attempting stealth but detectable to her enhanced hearing. "We're being tracked," she informed Dr. Winters quietly. 3 operators, moving parallel to intercept ahead. The scientist's eyes widened, but she maintained focus. "Options?" Diana assessed rapidly. "Split up. You continue along this bearing." She pressed a small device into Dr. Winters' hand. "Emergency beacon. Activate when you reach the old fire tower visible on that ridge. Our extraction team will locate you." "What about you?" "I'll create a diversion," Diana explained, already removing her outer jacket. "Draw them away from your path." Dr. Winters hesitated. "Is that safe?" A tight smile crossed Diana's features. "I've survived worse odds." Understanding dawned in the scientist's eyes. "You're going to shift." "Partial," Diana confirmed. "Enough to outmaneuver them without revealing our full nature." Dr. Winters nodded, professional respect evident in her expression. "Be careful." As the scientist continued north, Diana moved east, deliberately leaving visible tracks before doubling back through a streambed to minimize scent trail. She positioned herself in dense undergrowth with clear sightlines to the approaching trackers. They moved with professional competence, standard military formation adapted for forest terrain. Their equipment confirmed Diana's suspicions: tranquilizer weapons rather than conventional firearms, designed for capture rather than elimination. Silver Dawn operatives, almost certainly. Diana waited until they neared her position, then deliberately snapped a branch, drawing their immediate attention. As they converged on her location, she sprinted west, away from Dr. Winters' escape route, moving just fast enough to be visible, but not so quickly as to reveal supernatural ability. The pursuit team responded predictably, adjusting course to follow what appeared to be a fleeing civilian. Diana led them deeper into the forest, gradually increasing her speed as distance from the facility grew. When sufficient separation had been achieved, she accelerated to her full capacity, leaving the pursuers behind before circling north to rejoin the extraction route. The maneuver had cost valuable time, but successfully diverted attention from Dr. Winters. Diana reached the fire tower 10 minutes later, finding both the scientist and their extraction vehicle waiting. The driver acknowledged her with a tense nod. "Silver Dawn confirmed," Diana reported as they loaded Dr. Winter's equipment. "3 operators minimum, possibly more at the facility, non-lethal capture equipment. We monitored their communications after your beacon activated," the driver confirmed. "They're reporting a missing researcher. Dr. Winter's absence has been noted." The scientist's expression remained composed despite the implications. "My decision is made," she stated firmly. "I've seen enough to know which side deserves my assistance." They departed immediately, taking Forest Service roads to minimize exposure on main thoroughfares. Diana maintained vigilance throughout the journey, but no further pursuit materialized. The Silver Dawn operatives had lost their trail, for now. As they approached Pack territory, Diana briefed Dr. Winters on protocols and expectations. "You'll meet with Dr. Chen immediately upon arrival. Security will be tight. Your presence represents both opportunity and risk for our community." "I understand," the scientist replied. "And I appreciate the trust you've shown bringing me here." Diana studied her carefully. "It's not just trust, it's necessity. The situation has accelerated beyond our original timeline. The Silver Dawn isn't just hunting individuals anymore. They're preparing for coordinated elimination. And your internal politics complicate matters," Dr. Winters observed perceptively. "I gathered from your urgency that opposition exists within your own community." "Yes," Diana acknowledged, impressed by the scientist's insight. "Traditional elements resist human alliance despite the existential threat." "Tale as old as time," Dr. Winters commented. "Fear of the unknown overriding rational assessment of shared interests. Human societies face the same challenge." As they entered Pack territory through a concealed access road, Diana activated her secure communication device. "Alpha, extraction complete. Primary asset secured. Silver Dawn presence confirmed at target location." Marcus's voice returned immediately. "Acknowledged. Proceed directly to Sanctuary. Situation here has evolved. Council divided. Victor has called for formal leadership review." Diana absorbed this development, its implications radiating through her tactical assessment. "Timeline?" "Accelerated," Marcus replied, tension evident even through the secure channel. "Challenge scheduled for tomorrow's council session. Full moon ritual invoked." The traditional challenge format, ancient Pack law that could not be circumvented without destroying the very legitimacy Marcus sought to preserve. Diana's jaw tightened. "Understood," she responded. "Arriving Sanctuary in 20 minutes." As she deactivated the communication, Dr. Winters watched her with scientific curiosity. "You're Alpha. He's more than just your leader, isn't he?" Diana met her gaze steadily. "What makes you say that?" "Micro-expressions," the scientist replied. "Subtle stress indicators when he communicated. Your physiological response, pupil dilation, altered breathing pattern, minor vasodilation visible in facial capillaries." "A scientist indeed," Diana acknowledged with a slight nod. "Our relationship is evolving, complicated by current circumstances. Politics rarely simplifies personal connections," Dr. Winters observed, "particularly when survival hangs in the balance." As they approached the hidden entrance to the sanctuary, Diana found herself reflecting on those words. Politics, personal connection, survival, all converging in the crucible of the coming confrontation. Victor had forced their hand, accelerating conflict before their human alliance could strengthen. Tomorrow would determine not just Marcus's leadership, but the future path of their entire species. Diana's mission had succeeded, but the greater battle was just beginning. "Welcome to the Sanctuary, Dr. Winters," she said, as the hidden entrance revealed itself, "and to the most important scientific challenge of your career." The scientist's eyes gleamed with intellectual hunger as the sophisticated facility came into view. "Let's get to work then. We appear to have very little time."